Welcome to Novel Love Hearing. We bring you hundreds of novel audiobooks covering every genre and every kind of story you can imagine. Action? We've got it. Adventure? Absolutely. Horror? Of course. Whether it's the legendary Uchiha massacre or outrageous tales like stealing Naruto's and Sasuke's women, you'll find it here. From epic series like One Piece, Bleach, Fairy Tail, and Hunter x Hunter, to countless other adventures, our library has it all. Love novels but don't have time to read? No worries, just plug in your earbuds, sit back, and let the story take over. Good listening, and happy hearing. Although Orochimaru had to focus his mental energy to control it, this allowed for harassment and even surprise fatal strikes. Combined with the sword of Kusanagi's inherent traits of extreme sharpness, sturdiness, and near indestructibility, even these harassing sword attacks required careful handling by Hyuga's shoe. Otherwise, his torch pole could easily be shattered upon impact. Adding to this were 3 shadow clones deliberately created by Orochimaru, continuously harassing with ninjutsu. This placed Shu at overwhelming odds, 1 against 5. Moreover, Orochimaru's fighting style was particularly effective against straightforward ninja like Hyuga's Shu. Compared to the battle against Elder Chio of Hidden Sand Village, where he had allies and puppets posed little threat, Shu now found himself at a disadvantage, unable to unleash a powerful burst. After all, Orochimaru had too many life-saving tricks. Without being able to accurately locate his true body, Shu was unwilling to waste the precious opportunities to unleash his ultimate techniques. As such, facing the triple pressure of toxic snakes crawling from below, shadow clone ninjutsu attacks from the middle, and the sword of Kusanagi darting silently through the air from above, Shu was forced into complete defense. Though he relied on his extremely fast torch movements to kill the snakes, deflect the ninjutsu attacks, and knock away the sword strikes, plus the active and passive abilities of Hunger Hydra, efficiently eliminated lesser threats, Shu temporarily found himself unable to counterattack. And if this continued, sooner or later, Shu would exhaust his strength and fall defeated. Inside the Hokage office, 3rd Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi gleefully took a puff from his pipe, exhaling a concentrated plume of smoke resembling blade energy. Delicious. This was the strongest feeling in 3rd Hokage Sarutobi's heart at the moment. Watching through the crystal ball as Jonin Shu, the contender for commander of the Northern Border Defense Force, got beaten repeatedly, to Sarutobi, it felt like savoring a cooling sip of plum juice on a sweltering summer day, deeply refreshing. The accumulated resentment from multiple failed schemes against Shu had now largely dissipated. Although as village leader, having such biased thoughts was inappropriate, who could truly keep their emotions perfectly balanced all the time? Orochimaru has made tremendous progress. In a corner, Denzo also rarely showed a delighted expression, looking as relieved as someone finally relieving a month-long constipation. Of course, it was unfortunate they couldn't take action against Hyuga's Shu yet, or it would surely disrupt the fragile peace maintained among the ninja clans through political compromises, potentially leading to defeat in external warfare. For those who once held absolute power and now increasingly faced instability, defeat, especially in foreign wars, was absolutely unacceptable. Unlike when he ascended to Hokage during the First Great Ninja World War under crisis circumstances, the 3rd Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi now enjoys a firmly established position. At that time, even though he was doubted by the village's old-school elders, he managed to unite everyone with the support of Mito Uzumaki, one of the original founders, and led them to victory in the war. From then on, his rule steadily grew stronger until it became deeply rooted and flourishing. However, centralization of power has not only resulted in concentrated authority but also growing opposition factions eager to carve out their share of influence. It was obvious that the 3rd Hokage showed clear favoritism. Though this was unavoidable, after all, rewarding contributors was necessary. As a result, accumulated dissatisfaction within the village eventually reached a boiling point, leading nearly all ninja clans to shift toward opposing sides. Even one of the village's core foundations. The commoner ninja faction. Had part of its support drawn away by Sakamo Hatake, whose rise seemed almost unstoppable. Therefore, although the faction directly loyal to the Hokage remains intact, its potential for growth and expansion has already been completely divided up. What lies ahead is a zero-sum game. Among overseas ninja forces, Sakamo Hatake alone commands an entire region, basking in prestige and glory, while the 3 promising pupils personally mentored by the Hokage oversee the Land of Rain's garrison force. They perform satisfactorily, if not brilliantly, yet overall stability has been maintained. As for the Northern Border Defense Force commanded by Hyuga, along with the Eastern Coastal Defense Garrison now reorganized under the Hyuga clan's leadership, these positions served as safety valves redirecting internal clan tensions outward. Still, the 3rd Hokage planned to make Hyuga pawn he could maneuver to his advantage. That's why Orochimaru returned. That's why Orochimaru challenged Hyuga. And based on how things were unfolding, Orochimaru was really showing off an impressive performance. Although his initial moves contained minor flaws, he quickly identified Hyuga's blind spots and applied effective countermeasures. Truly living up to his title as the greatest pupil of the professor of ninjutsu. The third Hokage felt very satisfied. He loaded another bowlful of tobacco into his pipe, then calmly leaned back, puffing on his pipe with a composed smile. Chapter 117, A Mighty Roar. But a weak retreat. Hyuga's temper was rising fast. Although Orochimaru's simultaneous three-pronged attack had not yet caused him direct harm, the frustrating inability to counterattack was something he found hardest to accept. Orochimaru had the battle rhythm down to perfection. Though Shu, in his defensive stance, was nowhere near exhaustion. If this dragged on much longer, even the tightest defense would crack eventually. As for Orochimaru's chakra reserves, although they weren't as vast as Tsunoda's practically bottomless supply, with his elite ninja status, years of training under his teacher, and countless secret medicinal potions, combined with military rations pills, his chakra reserves could easily be sustained for 24 hours. Blood Slash, after activating the active skill, Hunger Hydra, once again to clear out a wave of approaching snakes, Hyuga casually batted away the sword of Kusanagi swinging toward his head. Then, using his natural resilience to endure mid to low-level ninjutsu harassment from shadow clones, he vanished in a flicker, reappearing amidst the snake swarm, aiming directly at Orochimaru, who was still lying on the ground vomiting out endless snakes. If Orochimaru's spellcasting wasn't interrupted, this nightmare would never end. Therefore, despite being harassed relentlessly by Orochimaru's shadow clones Aganjutsu, making him appear quite disheveled, Shu made up his mind. He was initiating a forced engagement. As for exposing skill characteristics or anything else, at this point, Shu, eyes bloodshot with urgency, had no time to consider such details anymore. Counter Storm, Jumping Slash. After closing the distance using shifting body technique, Shu locked onto Orochimaru spewing snakes from the ground. Using the wind barrier created by Counter Storm, he smashed through the snake wall blocking his path, then swung his battered torch pole straight downward in a fierce overhead strike aimed directly at Orochimaru's head. Boom. Predictably, one hit reduced the target into a puddle of mud. Another Earth-style body fission technique clone. But this time Orochimaru had switched places using Earth body fission from extremely close range, so his escaping form hidden underground was immediately detected by Shu. Counterstorm second activation, Shu let out a low growl, actively triggering the second stage effect of his E ability. As the wind barrier dispersed, strange ripples of chakra spread outward, freezing Orochimaru's underground figure that had only partially burrowed beneath the surface. However, instead of attacking Orochimaru while he was immobilized underground, Shu directly used a summoner skill. Flash. Then, just after shattering the Earth clone, Shu appeared before an Orochimaru shadow clone that was preparing to draw attention with a jutsu. You almost had me going, didn't you? Shu smirked at the three Orochimaru clones, then without hesitation swung his hammer horizontally, blowing up one of them. The backlash from dispelling the clone also returned to the caster's original body, worsening Orochimaru's condition further, already immobilized under the secondary stun effect of Counter Storm. But it didn't stop there. Boom. Boom. With two more heavy strikes, the remaining two shadow clones burst apart one after the other. After all three shadow clones were destroyed, Orochimaru leaped up from his hiding place underground, his hands forming rapid hand seals. Clang. Hyuga, who possessed the Byakugan, casually swung the torch pole weapon behind him, deflecting the sword of Kusanagi that came attacking once again. Then, Hyuga activated his equipment skill again. A red ripple spread outward, instantly killing a cluster of snakes wherever it reached. What annoyed him most was that even though Hyuga had killed so many venomous snakes, neither coins nor experience showed any reaction whatsoever. He couldn't gain any rewards from this battle at all, and that was exactly what irritated him the most. If just killing one snake could grant even one coin or an experience point, he wouldn't have felt so impatient. Fire-style Inferno Blast, Orochimaru took a deep breath and exhaled a sea of flames toward Hyuga. Since Orochimaru was the most favored disciple of 3rd Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi, it made perfect sense that he inherited the Sarutobi clan's fire-based ninjutsu passed down through generations. However, ninja techniques came with no inherent ability to distinguish friend from foe. Although Orochimaru's intended target was Hyuga, the first thing scorched by the wave of flame was actually the snake wall recently broken through by Shu himself. Watchtower Totem, Jumping Slash. Hyuga had no intention of enduring this technique head-on. Instead, he placed an invisible ward on the opposite side and immediately blinked Q over there, avoiding the flames entirely. After all, No matter how high his magic resistance stat was, there was no way he'd walk unscathed through a blazing inferno without losing his clothes. Worse than just burnt clothing would be damaging those sealing scrolls containing precious substances. That would be a huge loss. More than just body flicker. Taking advantage of this opportunity provided by his jutsu, Orochimaru finally managed to figure out the nature of Hyuga's Shu's secret techniques. Although the majority of the poisonous snakes surrounding Shu were incinerated by his own ninjutsu, Orochimaru didn't flinch in the slightest. Rather, the death of these snakes opened up his vision, allowing him to observe the entire process of Hyuga's Shu vanishing via instantaneous movement from a relatively close distance. Uninterrupted and clearly. Additionally, he recalled the barrier formation set up by the special sealing unit specially dispatched from the sealing team when Denzo conspired with Daimyo's guardian ninjas to ambush Shu. According to Denzo's report, although the barrier formation capable of blocking space-time ninjutsu had sealed off Shu's sealing scrolls, forcing him into unarmed combat, during the fight against the Guardians, Shu often used this strange but effective teleportation technique to flash around the battlefield and take down enemies. Orochimaru was extremely curious about the exact mechanism behind this seemingly superhuman body flicker technique, as well as how the red ripple, which had an effect similar to all-around blade energy damage, constructed its chakra formation. That's enough. Orochimaru licked his lips. We're only having a practice match after all. There's no need to continue fighting. Hyuga Shu frowned slightly but did not object. He also found these evasive, dull battles incredibly tedious. The limitations Shu has revealed are precisely the problems our clan faces. Inside the main house mansion of the Hyuga district, Hiashi Hyuga silently withdrew his gaze from the ongoing battle. He respectfully bowed toward his father seated above him. The limitations Shu has revealed are precisely the problems our clan faces. Faced with a well-rounded ninja like Orochimaru. One who excelled equally in taijutsu, ninjutsu, and ganjutsu. The Hyuga warriors, who depended heavily on the Byakugan and Gentle Fist, truly had no way to counter. This was an undeniable fact. Tell Hisashi to make the Gentle Fist 64 palms available to all branch house Jonin. After thinking it over for a while, the Hyuga clan leader made his choice and then sat in silence with his eyes closed. As the clan leader, he naturally understood the predicament the clan faced and recognized the importance and critical nature of reform. But as they say, position shapes perspective. Could centuries of deep-rooted tradition built into the branch house and main house system really be undone by just one clan leader? So, even just easing up a little and openly teaching the Gentle Fist 64 palms. Which wasn't a secret to high-ranking branch house ninja anymore. Could already be seen as a progressive reform. After all, for years now, the main house had only ever done one thing: tighten the chains around the heads of branch house members. This was the very first sign of any real loosening of the chains. Chapter 118, Preparing for Departure. Thanks to the defensive barrier set up in advance by the sealing team at the training ground, the confrontation between Hyuga Shu and Orochimaru went largely unnoticed. Other than a handful of people with vested interests, no one else noticed how two renowned Jonin nearly escalated to actual combat right inside the village. Though Shu mentioned it casually once to Miharu Uchiha, she barely reacted. His tone had been too offhand to catch her attention. Soon enough, their conversation and activities shifted toward their favorite pastime. After successfully meeting Miharu-chan's father, Tatsumu Uchiha, for the first time in the Death Forest and reaching a compromise, Miharu Uchiha became even more open about their relationship. Now that Miharu had grown older and started a romantic relationship, she no longer felt the need to hide her affectionate behavior in public. If not for finding the Hyuga clan's territory too insular, where outsiders were rarely seen, Miharu might have moved straight into Shu's place already. Unfortunately, even with Miharu's naturally carefree nature, constantly being surrounded by Hyuga Byakugan users still felt invasive. After all, the so-called rule against using Byakugan to invade privacy outside the Hidden Leaf Village was little more than lip service. Whether this rule was actually followed remained anyone's guess. Trusting others' ethics wasn't really necessary in such situations. Besides, their preferred intimate moments tended to be adventurous, and anything but quiet. Considering various factors together, Miharu wisely dropped the idea of moving in immediately. However, Shu would soon depart for the northern border of the Land of Fire to assume command as Border Forces commander. Meanwhile, despite also being officially promoted to Jonin like Miharu, Miharu technically remained Shu's direct subordinate due to Hokage Tower's negligent or intentional oversight, and thus was naturally bound to follow him north. Moreover, the power of a Border Forces commander theoretically held no upper limit within his jurisdiction. Therefore, Miharu, having firmly established herself as the commander's leading lady, smoothly devised a series of self-serving plans aimed at creating a cozy love nest for both herself and her beloved, all perfectly legal within Hidden Leaf Village's political framework. Shu gladly took on the role of a hands-off commander, willingly delegating all housing arrangements to the enthusiastic Miharu Uchiha, while he himself began contacting various personnel to assemble his personal squad. According to the standard ninja military hierarchy in the ninja world, foreign-based commanders typically maintained a private elite force, a trump card they could rely upon when necessary. Such directly commanded units resembled the personal guards or loyal retainers of old rulers, forming the backbone of a commander's control over his forces and ability to carry out high-stakes or complex operations. Although Hidden Leaf Village, along with other great hidden villages, had long pushed for standardized, professionalized systems, including implementing a collective staff system intended to restrain commanders' autonomy, the system never fully caught on among field commanders. This was largely due to the fact that qualified staff officers were almost exclusively drawn from the Nara clan. Many commanders, however, weren't particularly fond of having the Nara clan, who often aligned closely with the Hokage faction, influencing their decisions. As a result, experienced leaders such as Sakamo Hatake and Shirakawa Namiko generally preferred direct command structures instead. Consequently, the prestige and authority of personally controlled elite forces remained undiminished, regardless of staff system policies. The reason the staff officer system struggles to take root has a lot to do with the ninja mindset back in the Hidden Leaf Village era. Though these warriors had become somewhat more civilized compared to their warring state-era predecessors, they still firmly believed that strength ruled everything. Naturally, this made low-tier officers who tried to boss everyone around pretty unpopular within the overseas ninja forces. According to Hidden Leaf Village's ninja force structure, a full-strength personal squad consisted of 4 squads plus support personnel, totaling about 100 ninjas. Right now, aside from Miharu Uchiha and his only disciple Might Dewey, Hyuga's Shu's directly commanded squad only included 12 former members from the policing department's Special Operations Unit and 9 Byakugan-wielding reconnaissance specialists from the Hyuga branch house. All in all, that barely added up to 26 operatives, which meant a shocking 75% vacancy rate. As a ninja force commander, having fewer subordinates than authorized wasn't necessarily a problem. But having such severe understaffing within one's own directly commanded squad would be considered extremely disgraceful. So for Hyuga's Shu, filling those empty positions became an urgent priority. Although hastily assembling a directly commanded squad under time pressure inevitably raised reliability concerns, he decided to establish its basic framework first. Later on, once he reached the Northern Border Defense Force, he could handpick qualified personnel from subordinate units to fill out the rest. At times like this, a ninja's personal reputation and fame started to play a key role. Coming from martial faction ninja clans, Yamanaka Toshimiki and Minato had strained relationships with their families due to ideological differences. Still, they quickly learned about Hyuga's Shu's new assignment and paid him a joint visit, requesting to serve under him. Both had already been promoted to official jonin of Hidden Leaf Village through merit, each commanding capable directly commanded squads. So after checking with them personally, Hyuga's Shu welcomed them into his squad. Furthermore, as these two martial faction ninjas actively spread the word among their faction circles, over the next few days another 27 independent martial faction ninjas voluntarily came forward, asking to join Hyuga's Shu's forces. Though Hyuga's Shu didn't know them well, since they showed up anyway, he figured he might as well put them to use. He accepted every single applicant without exception. These volunteers certainly carried strong martial faction convictions, but in Hyuga's Shu's eyes, most were all talk and no skill. Out of the group, 25 were regular Chunin, and only 2 had achieved special Takebutsu Jonin status through battlefield experience and seniority. Even those 2, though, probably wouldn't last 2 minutes against him before suffering skull-crushing, showing just how mediocre their actual abilities were. Still, thanks to these additions, Hyuga's Shu managed to piece together a total of 61 direct subordinates from various sources. While their overall quality varied greatly, this at least covered 3/5 of a standard personal squad establishment, which satisfied Hyuga's Shu for now. As for acquiring additional personnel beyond that, that would have to wait for better opportunities down the road. On February 18, year 39 of Hidden Leaf Village, the Hokage Tower officially released an announcement regarding appointments for command within the ninja force. According to the official document, Hyuga's Shu, the rising star of the martial faction, was formally appointed as the commander of the Northern Border Defense Force. Meanwhile, Hayashi Hyuga was named Chief of Coastal Defense for the eastern seaboard of the Land of Fire. As soon as this news broke, the lower and middle-tier civilian ninja in Hidden Leaf Village were instantly thrown into an uproar. But this public chatter didn't ruin the celebration at the Hokage Tower or among the ninja clans. After all, people rarely share each other's joys or sorrows. It's a truth that cuts through every realm. The ninja from the clans, proud and clearly superior in skill to their civilian counterparts, paid no mind to the opinions of the lower ranks. At the same time, in an effort to balance the influence of the Hyuga clan, The Hokage Tower issued another personnel adjustment order later that afternoon. The Rain Country Frontline Army, originally under the joint command of the three disciples of 3rd Hokage Hyuga and Sarutobi, would now be placed solely under the leadership of Orochimaru. Jiraiya and Tsunade would remain in advisory roles. Moreover, the entire batch of Chunin promoted after the recent easing of standards during the Chunin exams would also be placed directly under Orochimaru's command, heading to the Rain Country battlefield after further training. Sakamo Hatake, who still commanded border forces stationed in the Land of Rivers under the title of Jonin Unit Leader, sent his congratulations via Ninja Hawk to Hyuga's show upon the official release of the commission letter. Alongside it came a small gift, 5 Chunin squads previously under Shu Unit Command on the Western Camp. Now reassigned from the manpower-starved Western Front Line to the north, falling directly under Hyuga's Shu's command. Now that's a thoughtful yet humble gift. Hyuga's Shu couldn't help but exclaim. How could someone so noble just up and take his own life over a single failed mission? Could that really happen? Chapter 119, 1,000 Miles of Gale. On February 27, year 39 of Hidden Leaf Village, Hyuga Shu officially led his unit and departed from Hidden Leaf Village, heading to the distant northern border to assume his new position as commander within the ninja force. At the time of departure, acquaintances such as Hyuga Hisashi and Kaorio Jonin came to see him off. Though clearly reluctant, Mahiru's father still smiled and gave his daughter, Mahiru Uchiha, a warm hug before her departure. Even the Uchiha clan leader, who served as head of the policing department, personally came to the village entrance with his eldest son, Fugaku Uchiha, to send off Hyuga Shu for his journey north. Judging from the level of importance shown, the Uchiha clearly valued Shu's departure far more than the Hyuga clan, which had only sent representatives from the branch house. But this was normal. After all, the Hyuga clan still held on to the much more critical eastern coastal defense garrison and their secret business dealings with hidden clans in the Land of Water, earning them vastly more than those grueling task execution. Yet despite strong backing from these two powerful families and a Jonin unit, when it came to ceremony scale and public attention, Orochimaru significantly overshadowed Shu during their simultaneous departure. Following this year's Chunin exams, Hidden Leaf Village had promoted over 300 new Chunin. Aside from a few specially selected individuals, all of them were assigned to the Rain Country Frontline Army. So when it came to troop numbers lining up for departure, Orochimaru ended up with 5 times more ninja under his command than Shu. Of course, this was merely a difference in numbers. In terms of actual combat strength, Shu's personal squad. Comprising 12 Uchiha ninja and 9 Hyuga ninja. Could easily defeat Orochimaru's newly promoted Chunin, who barely differed from Gain-in. However, ordinary Hidden Leaf Village villagers and bustling foreign merchants knew nothing of the complicated intricacies among ninja. They stubbornly believed only what they saw with their own eyes, assuming their observations represented the truth. They simply thought Hidden Leaf Village truly deserved its title as the greatest hidden village in the ninja world, and that the 3rd Hokage Hyuga and Sarutobi's protégés were outstanding young talents. The village's future pillars whose powers ran deep and unfathomable. As for Shu and his forces, most people regarded them as merely a minor contingent under Orochimaru's command. Even those slightly informed civilian ninja of Hidden Leaf Village considered Shu just another noble-born aristocrat who had used family influence to snatch away a hard-earned opportunity rightfully belonging to an elite commoner. A chance for glory through northern service. Shu, however, couldn't be bothered to respond to such sour grape comments. This journey spans thousands of miles. I hope you take care. Hisashi, who had came to bid him farewell, wore a look filled with melancholy but still managed to offer his blessing. Though your departure takes you far from the village, our family's reach can't stretch that far either. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. From the perspective of both a branch house leader and the son of the clan head, there was no reason for Hisashi to say such words. After all, he himself was already one of the beneficiaries of the system. Although his status could never compare to that of the main house, to ordinary branch house ninja, the young Hisashi, already pre-selected as successor to the branch leadership, was practically like a god among men. It seems your mind has also started wandering, cousin Hisashi, Shu teased lightly. There will always be times when we're left with no choice, especially for those of us who live under such circumstances. Hisashi Hyuga's words carried deep implications. But what drew the most attention was that he spoke so openly about it, without any pretense or secrecy. Even the Uchiha clan leader seated nearby. Who maintained his composure and refrained from commenting. Could not help but glance sideways at Hisashi several times in evident surprise. A complaint expressed so plainly was exceptionally rare among branch house members, whose very souls had been shackled. There will come a time when I ride the mighty winds and break through the towering waves. Hyuga also didn't want to speak too explicitly, so he subtly referenced a famous classical Chinese poetic line. As the most unconventional branch house ninja within the entire Hyuga clan. One who had never actually been punished by the main house. Shu had very limited interaction with his fellow branch members. Many dissenting branch ninjas avoided contact with him due to fears that his high profile might draw unwanted attention, and frankly, he couldn't even recall many of their names. Yet this didn't prevent the undercurrents within the branch house from becoming increasingly turbulent. Meanwhile, Hisashi, who was the clan leader's son yet predestined to become the branch house leader, felt just like a sandwich caught between two layers. Constantly struggling between the authoritarian pressure from the main house and the resentment of the branch members. "You even know haikus, Shu?" Hisashi asked, somewhat surprised. "Just slightly," Shu replied smoothly while shifting the topic. "I've never seriously studied grammar though. I'm afraid it must seem laughable to you, respected cousin. Those are merely leisure pursuits for self-cultivation during off hours. As shinobi, we need not concern ourselves with such secondary details." Hisashi immediately responded. As for their earlier comments about having no choice and riding the waves, both men acted as though nothing had ever been said. "Commander Shu." At this moment, Toshimeki Yamanaka. Who was in charge of processing their departure from the village. Approached respectfully, bowing before saying, "All personnel have completed registration for leaving the village. Please give your orders. Let's move out." Hyuga Shu nodded toward Hisashi, whose expression had gradually turned more melancholic, bidding silent farewell. Then he gave a sharp nod and led his personal squad at full speed northward toward the northern border. 10,000 miles of wind roll across the cloud towers, soaring freely across the sky. Whether due to psychological factors or not, after finally leaving behind the absurdly beautiful Hidden Leaf village, Shu felt absolutely liberated rather than even slightly nostalgic about his homeland. Under constant surveillance and guidance from 9 Hyuga ninjas, Shu led his unit avoiding towns throughout the Land of Fire, advancing rapidly through forests and plains at maximum speed. Unfortunately, only Mahiru Uchiha. Who mirrored him completely. Could grasp the surging emotions hidden beneath their commander's otherwise expressionless exterior. Even those martial faction ninjas who had originally longed for battle and distant horizons were now entirely focused on exerting themselves to keep up with Shu's figure leaping at the forefront of the formation, having little room left for sentimental reflection. Some of the weaker ninjas, however, started falling behind the main group after nearly 3 hours of continuous forced marching due to prolonged physical exhaustion. However, Hyuga Shu had no intention of slowing down, merely ordering the Uchiha ninja from his directly commanded units to assist those subordinates who might fall behind. The awkwardly proud Uchiha, though somewhat reluctant about actively helping others, still gritted their teeth and lent a hand to teammates who were gradually losing steam, all while muttering tsundere remarks under the commander's orders and Mahiru Uchiha's cold stare. Some explained techniques for prolonged high-speed movement using chakra bursts, some used drugs or ninjutsu to stimulate physical potential, and some even simply carried exhausted martial faction ninja on their backs as they dashed forward. Though their methods varied widely, overall, after these 12 Uchiha ninja fell back to cover the rear, the ninja force was able to maintain its marching pace. Although it wasn't convenient to communicate much during the march, Sashu could sense that an invisible distance which once subtly separated members of the directly commanded units had begun to slowly fade away. Even the usually stoic Uchiha occasionally offered words of encouragement. As for the martial faction ninja who received help, they also started forming a preliminary impression of the Uchiha. So the Uchiha are just a bunch of tsundere types through and through. They aren't nearly as hard to get along with as the rumors in the village made them out to be. This was precisely what Hyuga Shu wanted to see. Chapter 120, The New Commander Lights 3 Fires. Hyuga Shu and his group took a total of 2 days and 1 night to reach the Northern Border Defense Force's main camp from Hidden Leaf Village. And that was even with a full night's rest midway through their journey to recover, traveling all the way using the Iron Feet of Ninja. By the time they arrived at the Ninja Force's camp, all the lower-ranking ninja under direct command were exhausted and covered in dust. Their expressions, however, had changed, from the restless eagerness they showed at departure, which was tinged with a hint of laziness at the beginning, to a more composed demeanor. Though their actual abilities hadn't improved, they now shared a degree of unspoken understanding among themselves. This was exactly what Hyuga Shu hoped to see. Escorted by his directly commanded Jonin, Hyuga Shu reached the headquarters camp of the Northern Border Defense Force, whose loyalty remained uncertain, and entered the central ward tent amid a warm welcome from the stationed Jonin officers. This marked Hyuga Shu's first legitimate chance since being volunteered 35 years ago to take command of a sector within the ninja force, issuing orders and leading thousands of shinobi. It was a unique feeling he'd never experienced across lifetimes. Although his expression remained calm, inside he was already surging with emotion. Mahiru Uchiha sat quietly behind him and to his left, while a jonin of the direct command unit all sat together on the left side seats. Meanwhile, The original station Jonin officers crowded into the rows on the right. Overall, although there was clearly some tension between the two groups, with the Jonin from Hyugashu's personal unit obviously carrying an air of dominance over the locals, Hyugashu paid no mind to these small-scale rivalries. His immediate priority was to familiarize himself with the various cliques that had formed within headquarters before his arrival and to reclaim authority into his own hands. By order of the Hokage and appointed by Jonin unit leader Tsukumo Hatake, Hyugashu said slowly, "I will now assume command of the northern border." Unlike other frontier commanders who might have avoided such emphasis, Hyugashu deliberately invoked both the Hokage and the White Fang, an approach that greatly reassured many of the Jonin officers from common backgrounds who secretly held deep admiration for Tsukumo. The murmurs inside the war tent, previously brimming with whispers and quiet chatter, fell deathly silent. Everyone held their breath, attentively listening to the surprisingly young commander seated above them. Before my arrival, Hyugashu continued, who was temporarily overseeing operations at headquarters. The stationed Jonin looked at each other, their gazes eventually focusing on a round-headed Jonin officer. Just as expected. Hyugashu already had a good idea. "I am Keshinara." The man stood up and stuttered nervously, choosing his words carefully, clearly filled with survival instincts. "Currently serving as chief of staff here. After Jonin Kaorio was reassigned back to the village for other duties, I assumed temporary responsibility out of necessity, only to avoid any leadership vacuum that might lead to border failures. However," he continued, "now that Commander Shu has arrived, please assume full command." Hyugashu was somewhat taken aback. He had expected to encounter some local big shots who would recklessly challenge authority head-on, but to his surprise, they surrendered so directly and decisively instead. "Why don't the rest of you introduce yourselves as well?" Well, it was good that things wouldn't escalate unnecessarily. Nodding slightly, Hyugashu gestured for Chief of Staff Keshinara to take his seat, then turned his gaze toward the other Jonin. "Your humble servant, Commander Nagayasu Omori of the 1st Battalion. I lead over 120 combat ninjas responsible for tactical support missions. Your humble servant, Commander Kariba Aizawa of the 2nd Battalion. I command 97 operational ninja units and am responsible for border patrol duties. Commander Yamano Hijiro of the 3rd Battalion. Commander Kurotake of the 4th Battalion." Promptly following the order, all the Jonin stood up to introduce themselves one by one. Although their attitudes weren't exactly obsequious, at least on the surface, they maintained what appeared to be a decent level of respect due to a superior officer. After this round of introductions, Hyugashu gained a rough understanding of the current personnel situation. Consistent with the information he had obtained prior to his assignment, the Northern Front headquarters originally had 20 operational battalions and 10 reserves, totaling approximately 3,000 personnel. Every battalion commander was an experienced Jonin. However, ever since the large-scale conflict that broke out along the front with the Land of Rain, 10 fully staffed operational battalions had successively been transferred from the relatively stable Northern Front headquarters, leaving a current force of less than 2,000 people. You could easily tell just by how the officers of the directly commanded units were seated separately from those stationed at the original garrison. Among the more than 2,000 ninjas currently stationed at the Northern Front headquarters, even the number of Jonin within Shu's mere 60-strong direct command already accounted for 1/3 of all the Jonin serving at headquarters. For an overseas ninja force, Jonin represented its core strength, judging by the current number of Jonin at the Northern Front. Saying its combat effectiveness was worrying would actually count as being rather polite. Hyugashu still clearly remembered how, back when he served with the Western Front Defense Forces, Jonin had been assigned directly down to the squad level, and even under his command served Jonin such as Toshimeki Yamanaka and Mitotake. That kind of proportional distribution between upper, middle, and lower-ranking ninja represented what a properly balanced garrison ninja force should look like. Jonin Keshi. After briefly listening to reports from each unit, Shu remained noncommittal before directing his gaze toward Keshinara, who seemed slightly restless. "Yes. Lord Shu." Keshinara immediately stood up, respectfully proclaiming, "Please issue your orders. Your humble servant stands ready to obey." There's no need to go through all these elaborate formalities. This time, however, the excessive ceremony made Hyugashu himself feel somewhat uncomfortable. Have there been any unusual activities recently from Hidden Cloud's village? According to current intelligence, Hidden Cloud's village has been focusing its efforts on vying with Hidden Stone's village of the Land of Earth for control over the northern regions of the Land of Frost, Keshinara quickly replied. In our northern area, Hidden Cloud's village mainly operates within smaller buffer nations such as the Land of Rice Fields, taking on various missions, but so far has not engaged in any open conflicts with us. No obvious incidents mean there were covert conflicts or at least unproven confrontations, correct? Hyugashu pointed out a blind spot. Keshinara opened and closed his mouth several times, speechless. Was it appropriate to ask such questions during a meeting? According to Hidden Leaf Village's long-standing tradition, shouldn't a newly appointed superior begin by stabilizing morale and consolidating authority within the ranks before diving into work? How could he be in such a hurry to start questioning? How awkward was that? Nobody seemed prepared at all and everyone was caught off guard. Besides, he just wanted to make an impression in front of the new commander to protect his hard-won position as chief of staff of the ninja force. He didn't have any malicious intentions at all. What is the approximate annual mission quota for the northern border countries? Hyuga didn't dwell on it, directly bypassing the stunned chief of staff Kashinara. He turned his gaze toward the gathered Jonin stationed here who were exchanging glances. Can anyone answer this question for me? He had already figured it out. The seemingly obedient chief actually held considerable authority within the Northern Front headquarters. In fact, those Jonin who looked like they wanted to speak had probably already been spoken for beforehand. In the 36th year of Hidden Leaf Village, the village's mission revenue from the northern border countries, primarily the land of rice fields, amounted to approximately 140 million ryo. According to regulations, the village retains 30% of mission payments from buffer nations, while the main camp takes an additional 20%. Nagayasu Omori, the Jonin officer responsible for the 1st Battalion, stood up and reported. Why are you referencing data only up to Hidden Leaf Village year 36? Hyuga countered with a question. That's because since the beginning of Hidden Leaf Village year 37, Hidden Clouds Village has actively entered the land of rice fields. The total mission revenue collected by our main camp in the northern border countries has dropped below 30 million ryo annually. Kariba Aizawa, the Jonin officer of the 2nd Battalion, immediately rose to continue, especially in the second half of last year when Hidden Clouds Village significantly increased its forces deployed in the land of rice fields. Our northern revenue plummeted further. As we're nearly 3 months into this year already, the total mission revenue received from headquarters hasn't even reached 2 million ryo. Based on Hidden Leaf Village's minimum payment standards for ranked missions, Shu could deduce that Hidden Clouds Village had basically taken over the entire mission market in the land of rice fields. Based purely on the figures from Hidden Leaf Village year 36, the main camp alone gained 28 million ryo just from mission commissions. Hyuga scat in disbelief. To fall so sharply in under 3 years. And past commanders just ignored this steady decline? Honestly, I can't help but entertain some rather unpleasant suspicions. You flatter us too much, Honorable Lord Shu. Though not directly addressed, the perspiring chief of staff Kashinara still had to stand up respectfully and respond. I simply wished not to trouble Lord Shu with these inevitable yet immutable bureaucratic affairs upon your arrival. I absolutely had no intention of deliberately withholding information. Maybe not intentional on your part, but in practice, that's another story. Hyuga chuckled lightly. Furthermore, did either of the battalion leaders say anything inappropriate? As his words settled, the central war tent instantly fell into dead silence. Although 2 battalion commanders stood up and honestly described the current situation, this was clearly not what Hyuga wanted. Who was previously in charge of intelligence operations? Hyuga asked again. It was this one. Kashinara had no choice but to stand up once more, albeit reluctantly. Chief of Staff Keshi, you hold high rank and prestige. It would be best not to overwork yourself. Hyuga casually spoke these polite words he himself didn't believe, then lit the first fire of his new administration. From now on, intelligence operations will be handed over to Takahiro Uchiha. As you command. Toshimiki Uchiha immediately stood up in response. Though Kashinara appeared obedient, Hyuga couldn't possibly leave such a critical matter as intelligence. An affair that could determine life or death. To someone from the old guard at the ninja force headquarters, especially not someone like Kashinara, who belonged to the Nara clan. A staunch supporter of the Hokage faction. As you command. Kashinara dared not offer any resistance. He immediately bowed respectfully toward Hyuga, then offered a polite nod to Takahiro Uchiha. Even stationed at the remote northern front headquarters, akin to a place of exile, Kashinara, as a Jonin from the Nara clan, still maintained channels through which he learned about all major events occurring within the village. Including the detailed circumstances behind why Shu had become commander of the ninja forces at such a young age. Of everyone in the northern front headquarters, he understood its details better than anyone else. As a Jonin from a ninja clan aligned with the Hokage, he understood better than most when to yield and when to push. What made Hyuga most feared wasn't his strength per se, but rather his audacious attitude. The kind that showed reckless disregard for taboos and brazenly ignored the village's unspoken rules. Under these circumstances, having unintentionally become an example used to assert authority, Kashinara simply couldn't afford to gamble on whether Shu dared to cause serious trouble. Better to concede defeat outright. And avoid being captured on the spot by those Uchiha ninjas watching like hawks from across the room. Glancing sideways at Takahiro Uchiha, who seemed somewhat eager, Keshi inwardly sighed in despair. Surely there was some underhanded manipulation behind Hidden Cloud's village's smooth encroachment into various buffer states along the northern border. Hyuga could have deduced that much without even thinking. But right now, all he cared about was reclaiming authority. He had no interest in wasting time investigating past backroom dealings. How many Hidden Clouds village ninja are currently operating in each of the buffer states? About 800 altogether. Though stripped of intelligence oversight, Keshi Nara still answered as the former head. Of those, roughly 30 are Jonin, the rest Chunin and Geinin. This largely confirms Shu's suspicions. The shrinking task allocations across the northern border countries likely involved more than just Hidden Cloud's village as encroachment. Perhaps those long-deployed border forces had colluded together, pocketing shares of mission revenues for themselves. Why haven't these intruders been eliminated? Hyuga questioned further. To neglect duty while serving as border forces and passively allow enemy nations to nibble away our sphere of influence. That is an unforgivable offense. Honorable Lady Shu, it's not that we're unwilling to drive out Hidden Cloud's village, but the village forbids border forces from initiating any border conflicts. Nagayasu Omori, the first Jonin to rise and speak, said, moreover, apart from the 1st and 2nd battalions, other battalions have always been undermanned, so past is past, future is future. Hyuga interrupted Nagayasu Omori's explanation. To fear Hidden Cloud's village like wild beasts or poisonous insects while serving as border ninjas. That is a disgrace to Hidden Leaf Village. As for the problem of insufficient manpower across divisions, that's an easy fix. Hyuga then revealed his plan. Let's pool our strength for a decisive strike. The gathered Jonin exchanged uneasy glances, too stunned to speak. Starting today, each battalion will transfer 3 elite squads from its headquarters to form a special task force. The remaining personnel will still be commanded by their respective battalion leaders. Hyuga directly issued his second order since assuming office. Although nearly 1/10 of their strength was being taken straight from their headquarters, the Jonin still accepted this command. Past mistakes will be forgiven, and all errors wiped clean as of today. Hyuga third declaration served as a reassuring promise to these Jonin with various hidden agendas. As for mission report protocols, they'll remain unchanged. But the Hidden Clouds village ninjas in the northern border nations must be eliminated without delay. Honorable Lady Shu is wise. With that, the stationed Jonin finally felt a weight lifted from their shoulders. Chapter 121, Let the War Begin. Hyuga had no interest in that so-called precious local peace. In his eyes, if the entire northern border defense forces area remained peaceful, then he might as well have made this trip for nothing. After all, the gear and techniques that made up his strength could only be bought or upgraded with coins and experience earned by killing enemies in war. To Hyuga, peace was absolute nonsense. Even if those Hidden Clouds village bastards from the Land of Lightning weren't stirring up trouble in the border buffer states, Shu would have stirred up a conflict just to push the ninja force northward. This way, everything just fell into place and saved him some work. After transferring authority over intelligence operations to Toshimiki Uchiha, one reason was keeping important departments under his control, while another was simply for convenience in deploying those former members of the policing department's special operations unit. Those Uchiha ninja had once served directly under Toshimiki Uchiha, so Shu couldn't easily issue direct orders bypassing him. However, after assigning Toshimiki Uchiha this additional critical role within the ninja force, those remaining in the personal squad could naturally and legitimately be placed under Miharu Uchiha's command. After all, for a Jonin like Hyuga with shallow foundations, letting women run things behind the scenes was already the best move for now. Immediately following the conclusion of the first Central War Tent meeting, Shu quickly rolled out a wave of personnel changes. Firstly, he entrusted logistics matters to a branch house Jonin named Wadon Hyuga, and transferred 5 Chunin squads originally belonging to the Sakamo Hatake commanded unit on the western front line back to Shu's previous squad structure, placing them all under Wadon's command. Though these clan members and former subordinates weren't exactly strong fighters, they were among the few Shu could actually trust. After reclaiming key powers concerning supply distribution, Shu appointed Yamanaka Toshimiki as quartermaster general responsible for inventory management and specific distribution of military supplies, and then assigned Midata Kazuki to serve as assistant aide-de-camp. The latter nominally became second in command under Keshi Nara while overseeing official battle record-keeping functions. As for the newly formed special task force drawn from various units, Shu regarded them as second only to the personal squad in terms of strategic importance. Though inevitably facing potential issues ranging from superficial unity to actual disloyalty regarding interpersonal relationships, long-term emotional bonds, and sense of belonging among elite squads forcibly reassigned through semi-compulsory orders, Shu remained completely indifferent. Furthermore, with Takahiro Uchiha now stationed externally as intelligence director for the ninja force, Shu still had 11 other officers to assign. What he required wasn't more than a force of ninja soldiers capable of obeying orders and maintaining discipline when needed. For leading charges or filling frontline duties, there were already established operational units and reserve forces available. Thus, although Shu hadn't directly shaken up existing factional powers within the ninja force, every Jonin officer down to clerical ninja handling administrative tasks within headquarters had unmistakably felt the chilling impact coming directly and thoroughly from Shu. Yet when facing Hyuga's Shu, who had successfully ignited his initial campaigns as the new commander, not a single soul within the ninja force was willing to openly challenge him. After all, Shu enjoyed the backing of both the Hyuga and Uchiha noble clans, as well as the martial faction. The officers still stationed overseas in the Land of Fire weren't foolish enough to provoke the wrath of powerful ninja clans by becoming expendable sacrifices. On April 1, year 39 of Hidden Leaf Village, after 2 months of retraining the Special Task Force, Shu ordered 20 operational battalions into the Land of Rice Fields without consulting the Hokage Tower, ignoring the subtle persuasion from Narakeshi and others warning against provoking border conflicts. In fact, during his very first Central War Tent meeting after taking command, Shu had indeed emphasized the need to eliminate Hidden Cloud's village's influence. Combined with his directive for each battalion to hand over 3 squads, every battalion leader believed that Commander Shu intended to take personal command, launching a bold strike against Hidden Cloud's village's vanguard forces to establish his authority. Especially since over the past 2 months, besides stationing his men in key positions within the ninja force, Shu hadn't reviewed financial records or dispatched additional intelligence personnel outside the camp. Instead, he spent his days rigorously training the begrudgingly loyal Special Task Force, further convincing battalion leaders that Shu would personally lead from the front lines, meaning they wouldn't be needed for actual combat anytime soon. So it made perfect sense for these battalion commanders to kick back and keep partying like they did before Shu ever arrived. While constantly deploying subordinates on missions, they also skimmed off the mission rewards meant for both the ninja headquarters and the village. In private, Narakeshi even suggested whether they should give Shu a small cut, but most outright rejected the idea. After all, the commander knew nothing about this scheme. Even Kaorio Jonin, now promoted to Jonin unit counselor, didn't suspect these activities going on under his very nose. There was absolutely no reason to gouge anyone dry. Besides, the senior Jonins participating in the reward division had already compromised at the military conference by obediently transferring 3 elite squads from their commands to Commander Shu. What else could he possibly want? Kill me if you must, but I'll never give up my share. During secret talks, 4th Battalion Commander Kurotake voiced the strongest resistance and won loud approval from the other senior Jonins. Thus, the plot to bribe Shu into collusion quietly faded away. But they had all forgotten one crucial fact: there were 10 Byakugan users in the Ninja Force headquarters now, including Shu himself. Moreover, due to their long-term overseas assignments, these senior Jonins had become mentally rigid, losing their proper vigilance toward the Byakugan users from the Hyuga clan. They actually held secret meetings inside the Ninja Force headquarters, setting up nothing more than basic sound-dampening barriers to hide their chakra surges. This was a blatant mockery of the Hyuga ninjas. As expected, a ninja of the Hyuga clan captured every word of the meeting using lip reading and promptly reported it to Hyuga's Shu. Thus, I don't want excuses. I don't want to hear about losses. I want the Land of Rice Fields. After giving the battle order amid stunned silence, Hyuga's Shu declared his demand in the firmest tone: let the war begin. Burn everything until we reach the Land of Lightning. Chapter 122, The Ramshackle Troops. First battle. Hyuga Sashu had always believed that Hidden Leaf Village, and indeed the entire ninja world, was nothing more than a ramshackle troop. His experiences only reinforced this belief. In his eyes, the ninja world was simply a world where all sides were just as bad as each other. According to Sashu, the reason why Hidden Leaf Village, with its severe internal conflicts, could still maintain its status as the top hidden village wasn't because of its excellence, but rather because all other villages were equally flawed, or originally far weaker than Hidden Leaf Village to begin with. Even after working tirelessly to strengthen themselves, they still lagged far behind Hidden Leaf Village. Take for example the Hidden Cloud Village, which during the later phase of the First Great Ninja War sparked the rebellion led by Kinkaku and Kinkaku, ultimately resulting in the death of the second Hokage, Tobi Ramasenju. It was a powerful ninja village driven by ambition, with leaders and soldiers united in their desire to challenge Hidden Leaf Village's supremacy over the ninja world. Furthermore, Hidden Cloud's village served as the theoretical enemy for the Northern Border Defense Force commanded by Hyuga Sashu. The very existence of the border force's main camp was to resist any possible invasion by those highland savages from Hidden Cloud's village. To Hyuga Sashu, the best defense was offense. Once all of the Hidden Clouds Village ninja operating within the buffer states along the northern border were wiped out and the front line of the northern defense forces pushed all the way to the border of the Land of Lightning. And even right outside the Raimi Canyon where Hidden Clouds Village itself lay. He could rest easy knowing his defense strategy was solid. As for war and death, those weren't issues to be considered now. Ladies and gentlemen, I love war. After 20 operational squads unwillingly departed from their camps under the leadership of their respective commanders, Hyuga Sashu quickly gathered the remaining 10 reserve squads and gave an overtly inciting speech. This is not mere admiration for bloodshed and flames, nor is it a mindless obsession with destruction and death. What I truly love is the battle of wits hidden behind war. The shining brilliance of heroism amidst chaos, the explosive power unleashed when one pushes past their limits on the brink of death. A ninja exists for war, and the purpose of war is peace. Under Hyuga Sashu's fiery rhetoric, the weak reserve ninjas remained largely unmoved, but the Uchiha and martial faction members standing behind him became visibly excited, deeply touched by Sashu's words. When the barbaric Hidden Clouds Village invaders trample across our borders, when our interests are violated and Hidden Leaf Village's honor is disgraced, war becomes the necessary means to defend freedom and protect peace. Sashu's voice grew more and more passionate. The Uchiha ninjas began shifting eagerly, and even some of the reserve squad members placed there due to their weaker skills started to stir. Yet, this wasn't enough. During these 2 months, Sashu hadn't focused exclusively on the Special Task Force, a disposable unit destined for single use. Using his commander's authority, he reviewed every personnel record within the ninja force and found the perfect entry point. That entry point was precisely these 10 reserve squads. According to records, all the ninja in these reserve squads were graduates of Hidden Leaf Village Ninja Academy. They came from ordinary Hidden Leaf Village and civilian families and were practically worthless beyond their basic knowledge of the basic 3 techniques. In fact, even their lives were worth no more than 5 explosive tags as compensation should they fall in battle. And that too, based on the price of explosive tags before the Ninja World War began. Compared to them, Hyuga Sashu, who had also been conscripted 3 years ago for combat duty, could actually be considered someone privileged. Due to these 5 explosive tag ninja lacking combat capabilities, they often took on extremely heavy non-combat duties. These included, but were not limited to, various D-rank mission assignments that were incredibly tedious with minimal pay, as well as highly dangerous material transportation missions. Hyuga Sashu even suspected whether some of those incidents recorded in the Ninja Force archives. Where entire supply convoys led by reserve squads were completely wiped out. Might have been staged by the operational squads. Motivated purely by greed. For these bottom-tier ninja whose life was harder than regular work slaves, it wasn't just a matter of boosting morale. It was about emotional connection that could give them some real value. How are your families in Hidden Leaf Village doing? Hyuga Sashu's question came out rather abruptly. The reserve squad ninja looked at each other in confusion, unsure what he meant, yet no one dared or wanted to step forward and answer their commander's question. The village's lower-class civilians suffer terribly. Your own families aren't having an easy time either, right? Isn't it obvious that the days when having a ninja in the family meant the whole household could live comfortably? That era is gone now. These 2 follow-up questions from Hyuga Sashu stirred up even more uneasiness among the reserve squad ninja. But under the icy, death-staring gaze of the Uchiha ninjas from the direct command units, those squad leaders stayed quiet as mice, too scared to scold or rein in their men. Listen to me. The world shouldn't be this way. Your reward should not be this low. Sashu's voice was high-pitched and full of passion. At this moment, he might as well have raised his right hand 45 degrees skyward to emphasize his conviction. Everything that needs changing must change. And that is my promise to you. Your earnings will match your efforts. That is my promise to you. Your concerns will be heard and addressed. That is our promise to you. With those 3 promises echoing, and thanks to a few planted supporters already among the ranks, the once apathetic reserve ninja finally snapped awake. Hail to you, Great Lord Sashu. First came the planned cue shouted loudly by the planted supporter, who then knelt down on one knee and saluted Hyuga Sashu. Soon after, several hundred reserve ninja followed suit like dominoes falling one after another, kneeling down on one knee and passionately shouting crowd-favoring slogans without clear understanding. Yet at the same time, a faint spark of hope for the future ignited in their hearts. Urgent report from the front lines. Urgent report. In Hidden Clouds Village's temporary base camp located in the central land of rice fields, a Hidden Clouds Village ninja staggered back from the southern direction. Rushing in wildly, he kept shouting, Hidden Leaf Village. Hidden Leaf Village and ninja from the south have begun advancing northwards. What are you panicking about? Hearing the commotion beyond the camp walls, the Hidden Clouds Village commander burst outside and barked, anyone who spreads rumors and undermines the morale of the ninja force will be executed on the spot. At the same time, He gave a subtle glance, signaling his trusted men to apprehend the Hidden Clouds village messenger ninja who was in tattered clothes and looked terrified. Regardless of whether or not those Hidden Leaf village ninja who had been peacefully coexisting with Hidden Clouds village and sharing tasks among the buffer states had moved north, he could not allow this information to be spread under any circumstances. After all, at this moment there were less than 200 ninja in Hidden Clouds village's temporary base camp. Most of the Hidden Clouds village ninja were still out on missions across the buffer states and hadn't returned yet. Under these conditions, any internal panic would spell total collapse. Meanwhile, approximately 10 kilometers away from Hidden Clouds village's temporary camp, the 8 operational squads of the Northern Border Defense Force, compelled into this offensive in the north, had already taken their positions and waited for the signal to attack from their respective Jonin commanders. One left behind? A squad leader looked toward Chief of Staff Keshinara, confirming their mission one last time. Not a single one must escape. Keshinara, usually cautious and careful in camp, now wore a ruthlessly cold expression. Those brutes at Hidden Clouds village's temporary base know too much. This is what happens when they meddle too much. Up until now, Keshinara was still gambling that Hyuga's shoe had not yet uncovered the rampant corruption within the Northern Front headquarters. Chapter 123, A Blossom at the Heart of the Land of Rice Fields. As he forced his 20 operational squads into battle, Hyuga's shoe intentionally or perhaps unintentionally failed to appoint a commander for this northern campaign against the Hidden Clouds village infiltration force. As a natural consequence, the squad leaders first gathered together for a brief exchange before naturally dividing the battlefield among themselves based on personal relationships, as arranged by Chief of Staff Keshinara, following established protocol. One step back today means an inch lost tomorrow. And long-term like this, how can we sleep at night? Saratobi Kohai, the Jonin in charge of the 7th squad, kept muttering non-stop into Keshinara's ear even after the order for full-speed advance had already been issued. Otherwise, what else do you want me to do? Kill him directly? Keshinara shot a glance full of exasperation at the privileged Jonin. Another brat from a prestigious ninja clan. Bitterly retorting, do you really think he's just some insignificant young member of the Hyuga branch house? That's absolutely absurd. Don't forget, the coalition of ninja clans doesn't include us at all. The last sentence seemed practically squeezed through Keshi's teeth. Soft-spoken but brimming with intense anxiety. That's exactly why Keshi kept falling back. And showing signs of fear. Whether considering family background or personal strength, no matter how unwelcome Shu was within the Hyuga clan, Keshi. Himself cast aside and half-exiled due to unpopularity. Had simply no room to directly challenge Hyuga's Shu. Especially after witnessing how swiftly and ruthlessly Takahiro Uchiha executed a brutal purge on the intelligence network Keshi had once reluctantly handed over, Keshi had been left utterly shaken. Which sane person would kill off nearly all original intelligence officers and informants just to eliminate a traitor? Yet it must be said that after Takahiro Uchiha swung the executioner's blade, the intelligence system of the ninja force had completely slipped out of Keshinara's secret control, fully seized by Takahiro Uchiha. Narukiyoshi, who originally had some inexplicable minor intentions, became even more flustered by this situation, fearing that once his small schemes and arrangements were exposed, he would end up like those intelligence agents. Committing suicide with 10 senbon needles embedded in his back. Once this war is over, I'm applying to return to Hidden Leaf village. And I'm bringing my men with me. Suddenly blurting this out, Saratobi Kohai continued sprinting furiously ahead. Of course, most importantly, he intended to take along all the money he'd accumulated during years guarding the northern border. In truth, his 7th squad was the very foundation through which he controlled that wealth. And he had already decided that upon returning to Hidden Leaf village, he would promptly apply to join the Guardian Ninjas unit especially formed by Hidden Leaf village for the daimyo, finally breaking free from this ever-sinking swamp called Hidden Leaf village. Let's talk after this battle. Keshinara sighed helplessly. At that moment, Keshi found himself considering retreat too. Though not without hesitation. Enemy attack. Just as the Hidden Leaf village ninja forces emerged onto the horizon of the land of rice fields, the Hidden Clouds village scout posted on the high ground cried out like a rooster with its throat cut. Prepare for battle. The Hidden Clouds village commander, who had remained somewhat doubtful about Hidden Leaf village's northern campaign, no longer had time to gather more intel. With a sharp eyesight typical of ninja, the sheer size of Hidden Leaf village's advancing army was clearly visible on the horizon. Even some sharp-eyed shinobi could use secret jutsu to make out the ferocious expressions full of killing intent on the Hidden Leaf village ninjas' faces at this moment. Especially the Hidden Clouds village commander himself, who instantly recognized Keshinara. The man he'd had countless under-the-table dealings with in the past. You backstabbing traitor. The Hidden Clouds village commander nearly crushed his steel teeth into dust. The reason he had dispatched over 600 of his more than 800 ninja under his command on external missions, leaving fewer than 200 behind at the temporary camp, was because he had secretly received Kashinara's assurance that Hyuga brat still lacks the courage to join the battlefield, and should any special circumstances arise, I'll definitely give you advance warning. When he had secretly traveled to the Hidden Lee village border to meet with Kashinara, the spiky-haired Nara thumped his chest and declared, "Your most important task right now is to quickly clear out all missions in the land of rice fields and other buffer states, then make proper records. We'll take a 70-30 split." And precisely because of their long-standing brotherhood and mutual benefit, the Hidden Clouds village commander had believed Kashinara. After all these years, every Hidden Clouds village border commander before him had done business with a local power broker Kashinara. And never ran into any trouble. So why has everything changed now? Watching the Hidden Lee village forces drawing closer, the Hidden Clouds village commander's rage kept building. "You've betrayed us." With a loud shout, the Hidden Clouds village commander swept his arm forward. The well-trained but not panicking Hidden Clouds village ninja simultaneously activated cluster ninja tool launchers, firing a barrage of ninja tools toward the approaching Hidden Lee village forces that nearly blocked out the sky. Earth-style, Earth Wall. Despite being in a surprise attack formation, the Hidden Lee village ninja forces continued advancing at full speed. Under their squad leaders' commands, they split into left and right wings, flanking around the Hidden Clouds village temporary camp. At the same time, dozens of Earth release specialists who had already been prepared stepped forward from the ranks, simultaneously unleashing Earth-style techniques to summon towering earthen walls. Boom. 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 The torrential rain of ninja tools bound with explosive tags exploded against the earthen walls, creating violent detonations that sent rolling clouds of thick smoke billowing everywhere. The Hidden Clouds village commander immediately sensed something was wrong. According to normal reasoning, even if the thrown weapons were bundled with explosive tags, they shouldn't have achieved such an effect. Maintaining an advancing formation while being hit by such dense attacks with explosive tag tools shouldn't be stoppable by just simple high earth walls. In theory, based on the open intelligence reports he possessed, the Hidden Lee village forces should have many secret techniques capable of achieving air clearance interception. Something's off. Watch your backs. Although he couldn't immediately decipher the Hidden Lee village ninja forces' strategy, the Hidden Clouds village commander reflexively issued a warning. His subordinates were baffled. One sentence wasn't enough for them to grasp what they needed to do. But there was no time for the Hidden Clouds village commander to adjust their formation, because the Hidden Lee village ninjas who had split into wings for a flank attack had already completed their encirclement. They began counterattacking the camp with thrown ninja tools. Stand your ground. The Hidden Clouds village commander immediately discarded all thoughts racing through his mind and started directing his men to defend the camp. Launch signal flares. Release the ninja hawks too. Hi. His personal Jonin immediately pulled signal flares from their pouches and fired them skyward, while the ninja hawks were summoned from their summoning scrolls. Messages were hastily tied to the birds' legs before releasing them into flight. Boom. 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 However, at the exact same moment, sudden explosions erupted from within the Hidden Clouds village camp. The main command tent, where classified documents were kept, erupted in flames from the explosion. And the signal flares just launched into the sky, along with the recently released ninja hawks, were all shot down by kunai slicing through the smoke. The Hidden Clouds village commander sucked in a sharp breath. Then, even more Hidden Lee village ninjas surged from the smoke of the explosion, bursting deep into the Hidden Clouds village camp and sending it into disarray. Earth-style, subterranean navigation jutsu, the Hidden Clouds village commander understood immediately. But it was both too late and too late. In short, Kashinara's plan implemented a blooming from the center tactic on both strategic and tactical levels. Strategically speaking, on the northern border front, Kashinara had gathered the 8 most elite operational squads out of 20 for a direct assault to eliminate the temporary Hidden Clouds village infiltration unit camp. The remaining 12 squads were dispersed to hunt down and kill Hidden Clouds village ninjas scattered across various locations. Although after Hyuga's reassignments, these 20 operational squads totaled only about 1,300 personnel, the 8 squads Kashinara assembled included over 700 ninjas. Truly the most elite forces among the Hidden Lee village ninja participating in this battle. 700 Hidden Lee village ninjas against less than 200 Hidden Clouds village ninjas, plus the fact that the Hidden Clouds village temporary camp was filled with a group of non-combatant support personnel, meant this battle had essentially been decided the moment the surprise attack began and Hidden Clouds village remained unaware. On the tactical level, Kashinara also made careful arrangements. Namely, the main force would execute pincer attacks from both left and right wings, while elite ninjas would directly tunnel underground using Earth-style techniques to infiltrate the enemy camp, immediately destroying all intelligence material while simultaneously implementing the central bloom tactic in coordination with wing units to completely decapitate Hidden Cloud's village's command structure in one fell swoop. Especially the Hidden Cloud's village commander. He had to be the first to die, and his body had to be destroyed on the spot. Otherwise, Kashinara wouldn't be able to sleep peacefully knowing all the backroom dealings he'd once made with this man. Shadow imitation technique. As a Jonin from the Nara clan, although Kashinara had failed to form the traditional Inoshikacho trio with the Yamanaka and Akimaki clans due to his young age and talent limitations, his mastery of the shadow imitation technique, sharpened in countless battles, was uniquely refined. Kashinara emerged from the tunnel formed by his Earth-style ninjutsu and instantly located the presence of the Hidden Cloud's village commander. Through his secret jutsu, he manipulated his shadow to twist and extend, transforming into a thin black line that slithered forward beneath smoke and rocky crevices, directly aiming toward the Hidden Cloud's village commander who was directing counterattacks against the Hidden Cloud's village ninja. Although the Hidden Cloud's village commander was well aware of this Hidden Leaf village opponent's signature technique, at this moment, due to their considerable distance apart. Still beyond what his intelligence had indicated as the maximum operational range of the Nara shadow techniques, he wasn't particularly worried about being attacked. Additionally, under direct sunlight, Kashinara naturally cast his own shadow from his position, further allaying the Hidden Cloud's village commander's concerns. Moreover, the Hidden Cloud's village commander intended to properly organize his subordinates' battle formations before personally confronting Kashinara, the betrayer. However, while issuing orders as usual, the Hidden Cloud's village commander suddenly felt his body stiffen, instantly knowing something had gone terribly wrong. With great effort, he glanced sideways toward the ground, and his heart sank completely. A thin black line connected to the soles of his feet, and the sensation of losing bodily control originated precisely from there. It's the shadow imitation technique. A cold dread surged through the Hidden Cloud's village commander. Being controlled by a Nara shadow jutsu from such an extraordinary distance could only mean one thing. Kashinara had previously been deliberately concealing his true strength to deceive him. Consequently, the Hidden Cloud's village commander became even more convinced than ever before that this betrayal and ambush were part of a meticulously planned operation by Hidden Leaf village itself. Fire-style Inferno Blast, using Saratobi Kohai's fire technique as the signal, elite members of the Hidden Leaf village ninja forces burst forth from hidden tunnels, unloading their pre-prepared ninjutsu mercilessly upon the gathered Hidden Cloud's village ninja. Boom. 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 Accompanied by successive explosions within the Hidden Cloud's village camp, Hidden Leaf village forces that had completed encirclement maneuvers from both left and right wings stormed into the encampment, engaging the disoriented Hidden Cloud's village ninja in a bloody melee. Although the Hidden Cloud's village commander's condition was swiftly noticed by his close aides. Who promptly assisted in breaking free. The damage had already been done, just as he had feared earlier. It was too late. Far too late. A wave of jutsu scoured the battlefield like cleansing fire, devastating the Hidden Cloud's village camp's merchants who had not yet entered battle, sending them sprawling in chaos. Combined with the overwhelming numerical advantage. More than double the enemy's strength. The Hidden Cloud's village ninja were doomed to be defeated. Kashinara also did not allow momentary success to distract him from his prior resolve, to kill the Hidden Cloud's village commander and destroy his body entirely. Under his leadership, 8 squad leader-level Jonin, each assigned to command units, unleashed their ultimate secret techniques as they advanced on the Hidden Cloud's village commander for the final strike. Everything's gone. He had barely broken free when Hidden Leaf village's encircling forces overran the camp entirely. Combined with the endless stream of Hidden Leaf village ninja emerging from subterranean passages, the Hidden Cloud's village ninja. Who were already at an absolute disadvantage. Stood no chance under this pincer attack from both inside and outside. I shouldn't have locked up the messenger ninja. The Hidden Cloud's village commander said to those beside him. His aides had no words to say. Stabilizing morale wasn't wrong, handling unexpected situations cautiously wasn't wrong either. It was a reluctant necessity for Hidden Cloud's village to form a corrupt alliance with Hidden Leaf village ninjas in pursuit of territorial expansion and financial gain. And that wasn't wrong either. So then, the mistake lies with Hidden Leaf village. The mistake lies with this entire ninja world. Kill. The Hidden Cloud's village commander stomped and body flickered forward, launching a counter-charge toward the direction where Kashinara was coming. At this point, the Hidden Cloud's village camp had already fallen into complete chaos. There was no need for command anymore. What the Hidden Cloud's village commander wanted most was to pour out every last ounce of strength. Every enemy you take down makes it even, 2 and we come out ahead. Shadow sewing technique, round shadow. Yet just as his body flickered upward, his body still suspended midair suddenly stiffened again. Then he crashed heavily onto the ground. Right below him, perfectly aligned, was exactly the shadow of a stone being covered by his leaping form. Shadow strangulation jutsu. Successfully anticipating his opponent's anticipation, Keshinara immediately activated the secret jutsu, manipulating his shadow from below to tightly clasp around the Hidden Clouds village commander's neck, choking the breath from his lungs. But before his subordinates could attempt any rescue, accompanied by jutsu attacks unleashed by 8 Jonin-level shinobi, the momentarily captured Hidden Clouds village commander and his entourage were all instantly consumed within a blazing inferno. Kill! 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 Keshinara roared fiercely, eradicate them all. Spare not a single soul. Chapter 124, Absolute Loyalty. Just as the Purge campaign in the Land of Rice Fields got off to a promising start, Hyuga's Shu successfully completed the full transition of power at the rear base camp. After stirring up the reserve ninja. Those reserve ninja who had long been treated as expendable assets. He quickly hosted a banquet for the 10 Jonin officers responsible for commanding those squads. As drinks flowed freely, the mood turned surprisingly open and sincere. During the meal, Hyuga's Shu openly expressed his unease over a rival sleeping within arm's reach, earnestly asking for advice on how to ease the natural insecurity any new commander would feel in such circumstances. In response, the 10 Jonin were remarkably candid. They admitted their own limitations and suggested that continuing in their current roles might hinder the proper execution of orders from command. Therefore, they all hoped to be rotated into more relaxed positions where they could still contribute modestly to the ninja force's headquarters. They even swore on their honor that these thoughts were entirely their own, with no connection whatsoever to the 10 Uchiha ninjas standing guard outside the main tent. Principally speaking, gentlemen like you are all elite talents from Hidden Leaf Village, exemplary Jonins, and the pillars supporting the ninja force. Whether publicly or privately, you are undeniably the treasures of our Northern Front headquarters. Hyuga's Shu's tone was full of sincerity. As the saying goes, only the adaptable become heroes. Since these officers had shown such understanding, it would have been ungracious of Shu not to offer them a few sweet rewards. The Jonin officers felt deeply honored and humbled, humbly stammering their thanks while eagerly listening for what Shu would say next. In any case, he pointed out in an ostensibly neutral tone, the reserve brigade. The reserve squads. Are the most crucial part of the foundational military force and must be strengthened. Of course, due to past issues such as short command terms or inefficiency, they failed to fulfill their intended role. A fact we cannot deny. Those Shu added many qualifiers, the tension in the officer's heart ceased slightly. At least for now, Shu hadn't directly blamed these already mediocre officers for much of anything, instead attributing the problems to external causes. They began thinking things wouldn't go too badly. Surely they wouldn't be forced into retirement from the ninja forces and sent back to the village to live an unremarkable life as mere squad-leading Jonin, stuck dealing with annoying Genin recruits day after day. Under the anxious but hopeful stares of the 10 Jonin officers, Shu calmly took a sip of wine before slowly speaking again. Considering your past efforts in maintaining operations and the urgent need to strengthen our overall combat effectiveness, I intend to establish an instructor corps above the reserve squads. What do you think, gentlemen? Brilliant idea. The Jonin officers shouted in unanimous approval. Although forming such a unit entirely based on Shu's personal authority went against traditional Hidden Leaf Village military structure, within the Northern Front headquarters. And especially at this moment. Whatever Shu said became the rule. This was beyond question. Moreover, by establishing an instructor corps, each reserve squad would now have an additional higher-level administrative authority overseeing their operations. At least their current positions were safe. So in the grand scheme of things, this was barely a loss at all. Especially considering the current situation, a small loss was essentially a small gain. Therefore, the Jonin officers' minds began racing immediately. The banquet table quickly filled with laughter and insincere praise. Hyuga's Shu didn't elaborate on the exact structure or formation of the instructor corps, and those Jonin officers also had the good sense not to ask further questions. After all, as long as they weren't directly dismissed or removed, everything else could be negotiated amicably. After the banquet, Hyuga's Shu immediately issued his fourth order since taking office. The official announcement regarding the formation of the instructor corps. Because when the 20 operational squads went into battle, several capable Chunin teams had been drawn from the reserves for reinforcement, the number of ninja remaining at camp wasn't particularly large. Still, Shu's official announcement stirred up quite a reaction within the camp. Previously, through the General Assembly of the reserve squads, Hyuga's Shu had already stirred up excitement among the reserve ninja with his 3 promises. Now, this announcement on forming the instructor corps became part of fulfilling those promises. In short, Shu shattered the original 2-tier system of operations and reserves within the ninja force headquarters, forcibly inserting a third level. The instructor corps. As the training institution for ninjas. Simultaneously, the powers originally held by the reserve squads over reorganization, training, and evaluation were stripped away and transferred entirely to this newly established instructor corps. Furthermore, in order to ensure the successful establishment and effectiveness of this much-anticipated organization, Shu took personal command as its head, responsible for all matters concerning the instructor corps. In other words, all ninja about to enter the instructor corps for training could, in principle, call him chief instructor. Though perhaps not as imposing as a principal, under current circumstances, it was more than sufficient. Thus, right after the announcement of the instructor corps formation, Hyuga Shu immediately released the list of the first batch of ninja selected for centralized training within the corps. Nearly two-thirds of the current reserve ninja stationed at the camp, approximately 400 individuals. As for the former reserve squad leaders, he assigned them various menial clerical tasks, giving them the illusion of power to soften the blow of being stripped of real military authority. Naturally, he didn't care whether it actually worked. Meanwhile, as the restructuring within the ninja force headquarters proceeded vigorously, the first victory report arrived at headquarters from the northern border buffer states. Outstanding work. Shu openly praised the battlefield achievements of the deployed ninja forces after skimming the war report. These are the elite units of the Hidden Leaf Village border force. Particularly commendable is Chief of Staff Kashinara's bloom in the center, annihilate all-around tactical strategy. Bold and brilliant, that's true artistry in command. However, such praise only made the messenger ninja sent back by Kashinara even more anxious and uneasy. Kashinara and the other Jonin commanders of the operational squads weren't fools. Naturally, they had also left reliable informants behind in the camp to keep track of any changes or developments occurring there after their departure. As chief of staff of the Nara clan, Keshi naturally understood clearly the significance behind convening a full assembly of reserve ninja and establishing the instructor corps after deploying them to various buffer states along the northern border under Hyuga's command. Superficially appearing as an ordinary training institution, it essentially restructured the entire promotion and evaluation system within the ninja force. A move aimed directly at the newly established instructor corps and the recent reserve ninja general assembly. Ninja education would no longer rely on whatever scraps of knowledge their supervising Jonin or Chunin deigned to offer. It was a true structural overhaul that struck at the core of the old system. Put differently, though they still maintained control over their respective squads at present, they had already been branded as suspicious obstacles by Hyuga. After all, aside from their personal loyalists, most of the ninja under their command were conscripts rotated in from the village. While these ninja might enjoy small favors during peacetime, they wouldn't risk their lives for such benefits. If someone could offer greater advantages while ensuring personal safety, the commanding Jonin believed they would be cast aside without hesitation. So in that scenario, what distinguishes a squad commander lacking capable combat ninja from a reserve squad leader whose forces have been completely devoured? And without military power shielding them, how could they even safeguard their own interests? Carrying such concerns, they appointed a Takebutsu Jonin as a messenger ninja. Not merely to report their success to Commander Hyuga at the camp, but more importantly to gauge Hyuga's true intentions and prepare a suitable response. Of course, open rebellion or defecting to an enemy village was out of the question because they'd just wiped out Hidden Cloud's village as infiltrators entirely to eliminate possible evidence and witnesses. Even if they wished to surrender to Hidden Cloud's village, those barbarians from Raimai Canyon would hardly believe them anyway. Hyuga glanced briefly at the anxious messenger Chunin before signing his comments on the battlefield report regarding the northern border operations. Then he summoned Intelligence Director Takahiro Uchiha and ordered him to dispatch personnel to confirm the results of the battle along the northern border, instructing him to return with urgent news once confirming the elimination of the Hidden Clouds village infiltration unit. Understood. Takahiro Uchiha displayed perfect etiquette before stepping back and exiting the central war tent. It's actually this red-eyed executioner being sent. Though maintaining a respectful bowed posture, the messenger ninja carefully observed Takahiro Uchiha's sharp, decisive demeanor. The same man who earned his reputation for ruthlessly purging the intelligence division of the ninja force. It made sense from the perspective of authority and responsibility that the intelligence chief responsible for conducting a major purge should personally handle verification of combat achievements. However, the real concern remained. Would he perhaps do something else while verifying the battlefield records of frontline units? Like offering one of those now infamous cups of tea from the intelligence division. The kind that made even brave men shudder across the entire ninja force. The messenger ninja couldn't help but start imagining the worst again, his heart sinking with fresh dread. Keshi. Are you even listening? Just as the messenger ninja got lost in his thoughts, Hyuga Shu's sharp voice suddenly cut through his daze. Forgive me, Lord Shu. I was just so exhausted that I spaced out for a moment. Startled out of his daydream, the messenger snapped upright and bowed deeply. Forgive me, Lord Shu. He didn't dare say the customary "I accept whatever punishment you deem fit," for fear that if Hyuga Shu decided to make an example of him, it would become a serious problem. Discipline is what most clearly distinguishes Hidden Lee village ninjas from Ronin. Never forget that. Shu raised his voice dramatically but then softened his tone, quickly changing the subject. Furthermore, operational squads must redeploy across the buffer states along the northern border as soon as possible. As the second-in-command of the ninja force, Chief of Staff Keshinara must take full responsibility for this. I will ensure it gets communicated properly. Though tempted to press for more details, the messenger hesitated, mouth opening and closing a few times before finally giving in. After all, it was Shu's order. In any case, while Takahiro Uchiha had been dispatched to verify reported combat results along the northern border, whether or not there was a hidden meaning behind Shu's words about the second-in-command, one thing was certain: the 20 operational squads currently stationed in various buffer states wouldn't be returning to the main camp anytime soon. No one could yet tell whether this would prove fortunate or unfortunate. Also, wounded comrades must be sent back to the main camp for proper medical care at once. Deploying injured ninjas into battle again violates the will of fire. Shu added thoughtfully. Yes, sir. I will immediately relay this to the Northern Border Command and Chief of Staff Keshinara. Internally sighing, the messenger ninja outwardly maintained a grateful demeanor, respectfully bowing once more before asking permission to leave. What? Not planning to bring back those troublemakers? After the messenger had left, Mahiru Uchiha stepped gracefully from behind the tent flap, asking curiously, aren't we supposed to resolve the issue with the operational squads as soon as possible? Trust the people you use. Or don't use them at all. Hyuga's Shu brushed off casually. You're lying. Mahiru Uchiha, being her usual intimate self, naturally recognized this as mere evasion. After clearing out the Hidden Clouds Village infiltration unit, do you really think those barbarians at Raimai Canyon will just sit still? Pulling Mahiru-chan into his arms, Shu kissed her luscious lips before countering, even if exaggerated, according to Keshinara's report, they've already eliminated up to 700 Hidden Clouds Village ninjas. That kind of Hidden Clouds Village brute considers anything less than a major gain equivalent to a huge loss. They definitely won't give up easily. Mahiru Uchiha responded instantly without hesitation. Huh. But she quickly caught on, but if we just let these troops... Don't worry, I won't send them to die. Shu brushed off her concern, shaking his head. They just need to prove themselves first. If it's not total loyalty, then it's no loyalty at all. Hyuga's Shu continued. Since they've already dared to collude with Hidden Clouds Village and split the mission revenues like this, they must prove their reliability through actions. Especially regarding those disgraceful deeds of theirs. I haven't even reported those to the Hokage Tower yet. But even if those guys at the Hokage Tower knew, they'd probably cover it up anyway, right? Mahiru Uchiha's head nuzzled into Shu's chest, her delicate nose taking in his scent as her breath began to quicken. They're way beyond just being careless. They've gone full-on crooked. Hyuga's Shu naturally replied. These audacious bastards have embezzled hundreds of millions in mission rewards. And that's just a rough estimate based on what's public. Who knows how astronomically high the actual corruption figures are? Those old geezers at the Hokage Tower are already broke and desperate. Finding out about this would probably make them blow their tops. And many of these people are also supporters. Mahiru immediately caught on. Enough of this boring stuff. Let's focus on our favorite missions instead. Shu twisted his waist and flipped over, pinning Mahiru-chan beneath him. It's broad daylight though. Even as she said that, Mahiru's hands moved swiftly through a series of hand seals, erecting a soundproof barrier around them. Daylight outside, spring's warmth within, a joy so complete, even Hidden Leaf Village felt like a distant memory, just like the tale of Lu Ouyang's pleasures making one forget Shu. Chapter 125, The tide of events surges forward. Keshinara, who remained at the daimyo's court in the land of rice fields for rest and regrouping, felt an overwhelming sense of disgust and helplessness upon receiving the report from the messenger ninja. As if he had just swallowed a dead fly. No matter how much he prided himself on his intelligence and cunning, before Hyuga Shu's blatant use of authority and power, he was completely helpless. It was standard procedure for personnel to be dispatched from the ninja force headquarters to verify battle reports. It was also reasonable to recall wounded soldiers for medical treatment. Furthermore, deploying 20 operational squads to the buffer states along the northern border was fully within Commander Hyuga Shu's authority as head of the force. But the problem lay precisely in the fact that Hyuga Shu's arrangements were flawless. As a result, Keshinara could find no loopholes to exploit. For Nara ninjas lived for finding loopholes in the system. This made the situation all the more unbearable for them. Did our team commander leave absolutely no other instructions? Saratobi Kohai, the jonin in charge of the 7th Battalion, asked with a frown, clearly displeased. Although Hyuga Shu acknowledged Keshi, the chief of staff, as the second-in-command of the ninja force, the position wasn't officially recognized. That meant not every battalion leader felt obligated to obey him. Especially the commanders of the 1st and 2nd Battalions. The strongest units under his command. Were men unwilling to stay quiet. They challenged authority during the first military meeting. Now they stood with us against a common enemy. But that didn't mean they could be trusted. They were both from civilian ninja families. Outside of shared goals, they had little in common with the Hokage faction's die-hard loyalists. Forget it, Kashinara said after thinking briefly, quickly grasping Shu's likely intentions, although he himself had no better options at the moment. We should demarcate defensive zones as soon as possible. Hidden Cloud's village will definitely retaliate. Are we really going to sit around and wait like this? That brat from the Hyuga clan is still the commander of the ninja force. Sarutobi Kohai grumbled in dissatisfaction. And if we send back all the wounded for treatment at the main camp, the number of ninja we can actually control will only be about 1,000. Fighting against those Hidden Clouds village savages with such numbers would be nothing short of suicide. What else do you expect me to do? Kashinara suddenly exploded, shouting furiously. Do you want to lead the ninja force back to camp right now and kill that Byakugan brat? Or are you considering defecting directly to Hidden Clouds village? Don't forget. The combat forces on the northern front are already under our control. Even if we take this dispute to the Hokage Tower, we wouldn't stand a chance. Not to mention all our previous actions would surely come to light. At that point, I'm as good as dead anyway. But even as a Sarutobi clan jonin, you won't escape Denzo's grasp either, that maggot lurking in the shadows. After that outburst, Kohai stood there too stunned to reply. It's a hassle, but please go again and notify all the leading jonins to attend a defense strategy meeting. Kashinara let out a long sigh before telling the messenger ninja, they should get here by tomorrow morning at the latest. Otherwise, if Hidden Clouds village reacts too quickly, we won't have enough time to prepare. Understood. The messenger ninja, who had witnessed this farcical scene, didn't say much more and left directly. You've got a point. The tent remained quiet for a long while before Sarutobi Kohai, his face pale, finally spoke with difficulty, but surely there must be some opportunity for resistance? This is the trend of events. Kashinara said helplessly, closing his eyes. The command of the ninja force is in that pale-eyed brat's hands, clearing operations fall squarely within his responsibilities. Even our current defensive arrangements are just precautionary measures. So what exactly do you plan to do now? Just wait to die? Sarutobi Kohai once again found himself at a loss for words. But it's not necessarily that bad. Maybe we can prove our worth through Hidden Clouds village itself. After deep calculation, Kashinara finally found a theoretically feasible path forward. What do you mean? Sarutobi Kohai asked turgidly. We launch an offensive across the border into the Land of Lightning and escalate things dramatically. Kashinara said through clenched teeth, and we must act fast. Immediately after that Uchiha lands, Intelligence Director, confirms each squad's battle results. Isn't that just asking for death? Sarutobi Kohai was immediately startled. As the leading jonin responsible for the border forces, he knew Hidden Clouds village's strength better than anyone else. Plus, Hidden Leaf village was currently engaged on multiple fronts, leaving little room to spare its ninja force. If they actively provoked a full-scale village war, who could tell how many troops the village could muster to resist Hidden Clouds village's thunderous counterattack? The reason they had successfully wiped out Hidden Clouds village's infiltration unit this time was mainly due to a surprise attack, and secondly because they had effectively organized the ninja force to conduct an encirclement battle with local superiority. Yet even so, over 200 casualties had been sustained from the 20 operational squads, all of whom were exhausted, their ninja tools and supplies greatly consumed. They urgently needed resupply from the ninja force headquarters. Without it, they'd have no real fighting power left. The problem, however, was that Shu's order had only been verbal. Although he had designated Kashinara as responsible for northern border defenses, there had been no official announcement, nor had additional supplies been allocated to various operational squads. Under these circumstances, how could they possibly take the initiative in declaring war against Hidden Clouds village? When the leading jonins come tomorrow, don't say whatever pops into your head. Kashinara's first words immediately blocked any chance of Sarutobi Kohai speaking freely. I understand. Although feeling extremely frustrated, Sarutobi Kohai verbally agreed, hoping to hear out Kashinara's strategy. At that time, I'll have someone bring up the supply issue, then propose that everyone write letters individually to the main camp urging them to expedite the dispatch of supplies. Kashinara said slowly, as for marching north and actively engaging Hidden Clouds village, we'd only need to assemble 300 ninja. As long as we can wipe out several enemy watchposts and casually tour a few towns in southern Land of Lightning before returning immediately. But wouldn't that kind of operation be meaningless? Kohai Sarutobi first sighed in relief, but his contrarian spirit quickly flared up again. This kind of small-scale conflict doesn't even count as declaring war. I just need an excuse. Understand? An excuse is all I need. Kashinara had finally had enough of that idiotic monkey. Do you think I don't know our northern border forces can't match Hidden Clouds village's main army? Do you think I actually want to die? Foolish. All we're trying to do is stir up the stagnant waters. Not literally go out there and die. If we continue maintaining this lukewarm status quo, that Byakugan brat will eventually devour us completely. Got it now! Nara shouted that final sentence almost roaring. And it was the first time he had ever snapped like that. Although Saratobi's mind remained clouded with confusion, he wisely chose not to push further against Nara's obviously unstable state this time. But when exactly will the turning point come? It took a long silence before Saratobi finally piped up with another question. The rainy season is coming soon in the land of rain. Nara said slowly. As long as Orochimaru can't lead our troops to achieve a decisive victory, the village will immediately recall its stationed forces and eliminate the threat posed by dissenting ninja clans. At that point, we won't have to remain under someone else's thumb anymore. As long as Orochimaru takes action, everything will improve. The rainy season has arrived. When Hyuga Sashu exited the central war tent, light drizzle had just begun falling from the sky. Even though they were in the northern border region, April's end marked the beginning of the heavy rainfall season. Right now, the land of rain should have turned into a swamp already. Miharu Uchiha, walking close behind him, sighed and looked up at the sky. Those 2.5 years were pure hell. After all, using fire-style or explosive tags in heavy rain is as pointless as trying to use water-style ninjutsu in the land of wind. Hyuga Sashu quipped casually. That's true. The Uchiha girl still wore a flush on her cheeks from their recent intimacy. She raised her head, gazing toward the increasingly torrential downpour darkening the sky like poured lead. This season should be when its semi-god's power reaches its peak, right? Based on experience, yes. Sashu took Miharu-chan's hand and led her toward the dining hall. Let's get something to eat. You've been overworked. I haven't. Miharu's face flushed an even deeper shade of red. Raimai Canyon, Land of Lightning Raikage headquarters in Hidden Clouds Village crash. With a thunderous bang familiar to all Hidden Clouds Village ninja, a solid wood desk smashed through the window of the Raikage headquarters office and flew outside. The Anbu Hidden Clouds Village ninjas standing guard outside instantly leaped into action, catching the heavy desk midair and preventing it from harming any villagers passing below. Those damn Hidden Leaf Village vermin. Even villagers walking past the Raikage headquarters could clearly hear the enraged roar echoing from inside the office. However, the villagers of Hidden Clouds Village were experienced and well aware of Lord Raikage's nature, so they took no offense, simply glancing briefly before returning to their daily routines. Meanwhile, the Anbu ninja of Hidden Clouds Village quickly set up a soundproof barrier to prevent Lord Raikage from saying something he might regret. If inappropriate words spread outside, it would be a serious issue. Please calm down, Lord Raikage. Inside Lord Raikage's office, the Jonin from Hidden Clouds Village who had returned with the devastating news of the complete annihilation of the infiltration unit currently deployed in the southern buffer states. Was drenched in sweat, his back bowing lower and lower until he was nearly at a 90-degree angle. Why should I calm down? How else am I supposed to calm down? The third Raikage, overwhelmed by grief and fury, cried out to the heavens, my 800 elite ninja. Worse still, along with the total loss of this infiltration unit, Hidden Clouds Village also lost its operational foothold in several buffer states led by the land of rice fields. Each bit of operational influence meant a continuous inflow of funds into Hidden Clouds Village. For Hidden Clouds Village, those funds were vital for strengthening its military power and improving village infrastructure. When weighing the gains and losses, in the eyes of the third Raikage, this was no longer just about those 800 ninja. In the long run, the loss of operations in the southern buffer states was equivalent to Hidden Clouds Village losing thousands of ninja. Far more than just 800. There comes a line you don't cross. And we've crossed it. We received absolutely no effective warning from our intelligence division. One elder rose inside Lord Raikage's office, directly pointing at the head of the intelligence division. Who couldn't even lift his head. Saying, this is outright dereliction of duty. Because of the intelligence division's mistake, those fine young men died needlessly. The head of intelligence was speechless. He couldn't possibly say the commanding Jonin responsible for that infiltration squad had repeatedly assured him Hidden Leaf Village wouldn't act rashly. You will return first, sort through urgent matters, then report to Anbu for questioning. The third Raikage rudely cut short his attempt to explain. The intelligence chief, clearly burdened with guilt, offered a silent bow before exiting Lord Raikage's office. The third Raikage saw nothing wrong with his punishment and didn't think it necessary to assign someone to follow the former intelligence chief in case of desertion or anything similar. After all, Hidden Clouds Village had always been known for unity. Except for the rebellion started by the Gold and Silver Brothers during the First Great Ninja War, there had never been any rogue ninja from Hidden Clouds Village. A stark contrast to the other 4 great hidden villages. Lord Raikage, our main force remains locked in a standoff against Hidden Stone's village. One elder from Hidden Cloud's village rose to speak. If we are to declare war on Hidden Leaf village, we must first ease tensions slightly with Hidden Stone's village. Also, added another elder, Mist has sent us fewer and fewer messages recently. We cannot afford to weaken our coastal defense forces too much. These were indeed actual difficulties, not mere excuses. Because of Hidden Cloud's village's nature, the reason why they are willing to split the mission shares with Hidden Leaf village and even insist on penetrating into the southern buffer states by giving rebates at their own expense is to obtain as much funding as possible to develop the military power of their hidden village. The reason for this is also very straightforward. The first Great Ninja War consumed not only Hidden Leaf village but also the Hidden Cloud's village bloodline, which suffered heavy losses during the war and still hasn't fully recovered its strength. Therefore, if they continued waging several more battles under full mobilization, Hidden Cloud's village's economy would be on the verge of collapse. First, confirm the movements of Hidden Leaf village's ninja force, then dispatch a ninja force of equivalent scale to launch a counterattack. But don't get bogged down in prolonged combat. Make sure to retreat immediately after finishing the strike. A group of Hidden Cloud's village Jonin jotted down the orders with great care. Hidden Cloud's village has never been a docile or obedient hidden village. Even though it now appears strong on the outside but hollow within, the more dire the situation, the more it must feign fearlessness and treat war like a mere game. I'll leave this matter to you, said the third Raikage, turning to face his son and heir. Do you have confidence in carrying out this revenge plan? I will definitely complete the mission. The Raikage's heir was relatively satisfied with this assignment. Chapter 126, Don't say anything that undermines unity. As one of the most powerful nations in the ninja world, the Land of Lightning had always been ambitious. Hoping to replace the Land of Fire's dominant position someday. Therefore, both the Raikage of Hidden Cloud's village and the Lightning Daimyo tirelessly devoted themselves to strengthening their military might and national power. But ninja are ultimately still human beings. A thriving ninja population requires not only enough resources and mastery of secret jutsu, but also and most importantly ample time for training and growth. So when the Second Great Ninja War broke out, unlike the fervor during the First Great Ninja War, Hidden Cloud's village chose a strategy of gradual encroachment into the buffer states between the Land of Lightning and the Land of Fire. They even went as far as posing as hired hands doing jobs for cash, while slipping extra payments to corrupt Hidden Leaf village ninja. At the same time, regarding relations with their traditional enemy Hidden Stone's village, Hidden Cloud's village did not rush to strike while Hidden Stone's village was stuck in the quagmire of the Land of Rain. Instead, they applied pressure slowly like boiling a frog in warm water, successfully taking over key northern areas of the strategically important Land of Frost. In response, Hidden Stone's village, unwilling to fight on two fronts and fall into disadvantage, chose to ignore Hidden Cloud's village's slow but steady advance. Because of this, the expansion advocated by the Third Raikage achieved remarkable results. The steady effectiveness of his military expansion policy significantly increased the village's support for the Raikage and earned him growing trust from the Lightning Daimyo, resulting in continuously increasing military budgets. In such a positive cycle of continuous benefits, from the Raikage down to ordinary Hidden Cloud's village ninja, everyone looked forward to the future with high hopes. However, a sudden cleansing strike by the Leaf's northern border forces hit Hidden Cloud's village like a thunderbolt, leaving confident Hidden Cloud's village completely stunned. Naturally, after news spread about the complete annihilation of the Southern Infiltration Unit, previously confident Hidden Cloud's village ninja were suddenly overcome with rage. Declare war against despicable Hidden Leaf village. An eye for an eye, blood for blood. March south. March south. Almost simultaneously with the formulation of revenge plans within the Raikage headquarters, enraged Hidden Cloud's village ninja spontaneously gathered outside the Raikage building, shouting wild battle cries, demanding immediate revenge on the traitorous Hidden Leaf village ninja behind the ambush. As for exactly how many Leaf forces participated in eliminating the infiltration unit, how much time and military supplies were burned through, and what the actual casualty ratio was, these hot-blooded Hidden Cloud's village ninja didn't care at all. All they wanted was to vent their fury. To exact revenge. However, although he felt angered too, the Third Raikage, as leader of the village, hadn't let anger cloud his judgment completely. While it was necessary to unite fellow villagers, equally important for a village head was making decisions based on clear judgment of circumstances, thus gaining greater interests for the village. Following his instruction, his son. The beloved heir and next generation leader, the Fourth Raikage, publicly addressed all Hidden Cloud's village ninja, announcing the smite of those dishonorable Hidden Leaf village ninja who launched surprise attacks while promising to reclaim the promised lands along the southern border. However, A did not accept the request from the Hidden Cloud's village ninja within the village who had come to petition for battle. Instead, he stated that for the sake of combat efficiency, the village would send elite forces southward for revenge, urging everyone to remain at their posts and contribute properly to the village. The sudden outbreak of war fervor within Hidden Cloud's village also greatly shocked the spies from other hidden villages currently hiding inside Ramai Canyon. In no time at all, the skies above Ramai Canyon were soon filled with birds as these spies risked exposure to release ninja hawks and other birds to report back to their respective villages. After all, knowing Hidden Cloud's village's usual behavior, even if they hadn't yet engaged in a large-scale direct conflict with Hidden Leaf Village, it was practically taken for granted among everyone that they'd seize the chance to strike other ninja villages to replenish their resources. Hidden Leaf Village's Hokage Tower became aware of the situation almost immediately after Hyuga issued the orders for the operational squads to mobilize. However, it remained silent until Shu officially submitted his battlefield report under the identity of the Northern Front Border Forces commander. Unsurprisingly, Hidden Leaf Village's F4, being apprentices of the second, Tobi Ramasenju, deeply hated Hidden Cloud's village for killing their teacher and hunting down the 6 of them across hundreds of miles. Yet due to their higher ranks, they couldn't afford to let personal feelings dictate policy. Considering Hidden Cloud's village's strength, it wasn't easy to destroy them in a short time, so they had previously maintained a deliberately distant relationship to ease their deep hatred. Moreover, no matter what, even though Hyuga Shu and the two powerful clans, the Hyuga and Uchiha, posed a significant threat to the Hokage line, that was an internal matter within Hidden Leaf Village. Even someone as despicable as Denzo merely hoped those disobedient figures would fight each other to death with Hidden Cloud's village, preferably eliminating both sides completely. Still, no one would ever consider openly collaborating with the enemy or sacrificing an entire ninja force. Therefore, upon receiving Shu's battlefield report and intelligence from spies embedded in Hidden Cloud's village, the Hokage Tower quickly called for a council of all clan leaders to be convened before the Kage, to discuss how to deal with the inevitable threat from Hidden Cloud's village. Initiating war at such a critical moment, it's simply too reckless. Commander Shu went too far. At the beginning of the meeting, the Nara clan leader immediately launched criticism. Right now, most of our main forces are concentrated on the Western Front and the Land of Rain. If we keep withdrawing ninja stationed in the village, it'll be hard to maintain our current mission capacity. Long term, this will be harmful rather than beneficial to the village. Border defense forces need level-headed leadership, added the Yamanaka clan leader in a calm tone. But reclaiming lost territory and clearing out infiltrated enemy forces is indeed part of the border unit's responsibilities. There's nothing wrong with what Shu did tactically, offered the more aggressive Tsuman Yuzuka in a fair-minded manner. He didn't do anything wrong, but neither did he do anything wise. Clearly serving as the Hokage faction's vanguard at this meeting, the Nara clan leader countered swiftly and sharply, as a regional military commander, inciting border conflicts that could potentially escalate into village-wide warfare while the village faces imminent major battles. That's extremely reckless behavior. So according to you, we should just sit here and let those savages from Hidden Cloud's village steal the Land of Fire's vessels? The Inuzuka clan leader shot a glance at the impassive Hyuga clan leader before snapping back. If it weren't for Shu directing the ninja force to wipe out those infiltrating Hidden Cloud's village ninja, in a couple more years, Hidden Cloud's village's army might already be marching into Fire Country's districts. By then we wouldn't just be clearing border buffer states. We'd be preparing homeland defenses and fortifying Kasago Castle. Hidden Leaf Village, which once commanded respect across the ninja world, is crumbling under spineless cowards like you. After this barrage of scathing accusations from the Inuzuka leader, supporters of the Hokage faction all wore grim expressions but didn't know how to respond. From Hidden Leaf Village's interests perspective, Commander Shi hadn't made any mistakes. In fact, he turned things around immediately upon taking office by completely recovering the northern border buffer state that had been infiltrated without the village's knowledge. This was a shining example of loyalty put into action. Yet viewed from Hidden Leaf Village's current situation, Shu's actions were somewhat untimely. The village's main standing ninja force was mostly deployed on Sakamo Hatake's western front and the Rain Country frontline army led by the third Hokage's 3 apprentices. The Sannin. If large-scale war truly broke out, they would definitely have to intensify mobilization efforts, drawing strength not only from the ninja clans but also from village ninja themselves. But here lay precisely the problem. During the previous mobilization round, the Hokage faction had already conceded a big slice of the pie. Now if further clan recruitment was needed, exactly how much more territory would they have to offer these ninja clans to satisfy their appetites? As ninja serving Hidden Leaf Village, we must never forget a second Hokage's passing. After exchanging glances, the Uchiha clan leader voiced his opinion first, and it falls upon us as descendants to avenge those grudges. One generation bears its own responsibilities. Leaving everything to the next generation isn't the right path. The Hyuga clan leader added calmly. With that, Both influential clan leaders fell silent. The conference room instantly became so quiet one could hear a pin drop. Internal troubles and external threats. Third Hokage Hyuga Sarutobi sighed inwardly, signaling his old friend Denzo with a meaningful look. This moment demanded precisely the time when Denzo should step forward. As both spokesperson and scapegoat. Convince everyone, and all celebrate together. Say the wrong thing? It's just your personal opinion. Easily dismissed. That's how he survives as both a figurehead and scapegoat, stirring up trouble repeatedly but staying unscathed. When Denzo caught his longtime friend's gaze, he immediately understood exactly what kind of feces he would now have to produce. Yet he still felt hesitant. Though he deeply disliked Hyuga's Shu. A noble clan ninja who once brought him tremendous humiliation. That didn't prevent Denzo from appreciating certain measures taken by Shu. This wasn't about personal interest but purely from the martial faction's perspective. However, if he needed to publicly criticize Hyuga's Shu, he would necessarily take an overarching stance representing Hidden Leaf Village's broader interests, inevitably forcing him to part ways with the revenge-driven martial faction mentality. And that was exactly what Denzo wished to avoid. Especially now with the ninja clan coalition just forming. He could no longer forcibly conscript talents from declining clans like before. Instead, he could only resort to brainwashing. Luring in misguided hotheads who bought into his propaganda to join Root Division. But the problem was, Denzo was in direct competition with Shu for influence. After all, Shu could walk freely under the sunlight, while Denzo had been mocked as a repulsive maggot lurking in darkness. They were worlds apart. Shu is too young and far too cautious. After a long pause and deep thought, Denzo's words stirred intense reactions. What the? Even his longtime friend, Hyuga Sarutobi, was left speechless. You've gotta be kidding me. Now he's turning traitor? The third Hokage's face hardened instantly. As a military commander, Shu, as a jonin, seems hesitant to engage in battle. Denzo kept shocking everyone with every word. He remained behind in safety while his subordinates went into combat. Even after the battle, he didn't dare visit the front line to comfort those loyal Hidden Leaf Village ninjas who fought bravely. Clearly, he severely lacks the courage and sense of responsibility essential for any Hidden Leaf Village ninja. Everyone exchanged glances, half amused and half baffled. What does that have to do with being overly cautious? If staying away from the front line equates to cowardice, then since the start of the Great Ninja World War, hasn't the third Hokage himself, who always stayed at Hidden Leaf Village headquarters, been the biggest incompetent in the entire village? They all perfectly understood why he had ordered those veteran ninja units into battle. In their eyes, it showed Shu's youthful brilliance and strategic mind. Besides, speaking of scheming and political maneuvering, who in Hidden Leaf Village could possibly rival Hidden Leaf Village's F4, those old foxes who controlled the village's power? But could they really bring up such matters openly? This is exactly the kind of thing Hidden Leaf Village has always done, but never spoken aloud. How could Denzo, a top leader, fail to understand such an unspoken rule that everyone knew but no one ever said out loud? How intriguing. Hyuga Sarutobi thought along different lines, and his expression quickly brightened again. Give me a break. But before Denzo could finish his train of thought, the Uchiha clan leader cut right through his scheme without mercy. Now is a time of crisis. For Elder Denzo to engage in baseless speculation and accuse others like this may lead people to question whether the village's leadership truly possesses competent governance ability. That's true. Aside from the calm as an old fox Hyuga clan leader, the other clan heads within the coalition of ninja clans voiced their agreement in unison. Denzo, originally prepared with plenty of arguments, was furious, at least outwardly he appeared so. Then he huffed angrily, bowed his head, and clammed up completely. After successfully thwarting Denzo's scheme, the ninja clan leaders immediately shifted their attention back toward the third Hokage. That son of a bitch. A sudden possibility struck the third Hokage. Could it be Denzo deliberately spouted such nonsense to distance himself? Once the suspicion was sown, it quickly grew roots. After casting a suspicious glance at Denzo, the third Hokage sighed helplessly and finally decided to voice his own stance personally. Without doubt, the Northern Border Defense Force's recent cleansing operation ended in a complete and decisive victory. This large-scale purge truly showcased the loyalty and bravery of Hidden Leaf Village's ninja. As the newly appointed commander, Jonin Shu also deserves credit for his strategic planning. This fact cannot be disputed. To silence the clan leaders, one must acknowledge Hyuga Shu's contribution. As for those underhanded political tactics, better not to speak words that harm unity. Especially under current circumstances when the clans hold significant power, we absolutely cannot disrupt the village's unity, even just outwardly. The village needs reinforcements at the front lines. Please advise how we should proceed, Lord Hokage, said the Hyuga clan leader slowly. After all, we're Hidden Leaf Village ninja too, so naturally we'll do our part. the village simply cannot spare enough manpower anymore, which is precisely why this meeting was convened. I hope each clan leader can demonstrate their spirit of sacrifice and help ease the village's burdens. Since he'd already lost face once, the third Hokage didn't mind losing face again. He adopted a somewhat broken jar might as well remain broken attitude as he shrugged and employed an extremely high-level compliment with criticism tactic. This meeting proposes forming a new regiment of 3,000 ninjas conscripted from various ninja clans, which I'm sure each clan leader would happily contribute. So then, how many ninjas will your clans be willing to dispatch? We have already done much for the village. The Hyuga clan leader deflected smoothly, plus, regular village ninja are also being mobilized northward for support. Absolutely unacceptable. If they didn't mobilize the clan ninja for combat, how could the Hokage's faction, which would suffer heavy losses in the war, control these increasingly arrogant ninja clans afterward? This matter is extremely important and requires careful deliberation. The Hyuga clan leader remained expressionless. Several clan leaders nodded in agreement. That's exactly how a top-tier clan leader should speak. Every word was powerful and impressively calculated. Chapter 127, Marching toward the crimson glow of war. Despite all the arguing and bickering, the village still had no choice but to gather ninja and prepare supplies to support the northern border defense force. In case war truly broke out. Otherwise, if Hidden Cloud's village suddenly launched a full-scale invasion and wiped out the northern border forces entirely, the Land of Fire's northern defenses would lie wide open, inviting nothing short of disaster. And afterward, all the blame from the daimyos, courtiers, and even the village's own ninja would ultimately fall on Hidden Lee Village's F4. However, this time's council before the Kage fell apart due to fierce disagreements and outrageous demands from the coalition of ninja clans. Still, while the meeting could be dismissed, the battle at the front line wouldn't wait for anyone. After all, once you take up the crown, you must also bear its burden. As Hokage, there were always times when one had no choice but to act. Moreover, although the position of commander of the Northern Border Defense Force was reluctantly handed over to Hyuga as a conciliatory gesture, the Hokage faction remained Hidden Lee Village's legitimate ruling power. Decades of accumulated authority governing the village couldn't be easily shaken. Additionally, over half of the Jonin leading the operational squads that controlled the Northern Front's main forces came from ninja clans firmly aligned with the Hokage faction. Thus, from the beginning, Third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi never really worried about the entire Northern Command falling completely into the hands of Hyuga, who lacked any real foundation. But what he hadn't expected was that Shu would actually flip the table so aggressively as to risk igniting outright war. Even less anticipated was that those Jonin commanders originating from the Hokage faction would turn out to be so greedy that they willingly handed over mission assignments to Hidden Cloud's village as infiltration unit in exchange for illicit payments. And after the meeting, he received what could only be described as disastrous intelligence. The evidence and reports proving collusion between those frontline Jonin and Hidden Cloud's village. If it weren't for spies from Denzo's root division embedded within the border forces operational squads who discovered suspicious activity during skirmishes near Hidden Cloud's village's temporary camps, deliberately preserving some evidence and delivering it back to Hidden Lee Village for Denzo, he likely wouldn't have known about it even now. No wonder that ever since the outbreak of the Great Ninja World War, Hidden Cloud's village, known for never missing a chance to strike, had not launched a single opportunistic attack. It turned out that the very Jonin assigned to guard against Hidden Cloud's village had secretly reached appeasement agreements with them all along. Once this matter got exposed, how would Hidden Lee Village react? What kind of perception would form toward the Hokage lineage? Even thinking with his toes, Third Hokage already knew exactly what would happen. If we mobilize without affecting current mission execution progress, the village could probably conscript around 1,800 ninja for combat. If we go all out, we might send out roughly 4,000 ninja. After all the clan leaders had left, Mitakato Hamura, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke in a quiet, contemplative tone. However, if this force gets dispatched, the village's defenses will then be. He didn't finish, but the other three understood precisely what he meant. Hidden Lee Village's defense system was jointly managed by the barrier unit, the policing department, and the Hokage's direct Anbu. However, both the barrier unit and Anbu were clearly outnumbered and outclassed militarily compared to the Uchiha clan's policing department. Adding to this already precarious situation were the various ninja clans still remaining in the village, each watching for an opportunity to pounce. If those common ninja who acted as a stabilizing force keeping these clans in check were all sent overseas for war, then in the event of any unforeseen crisis, the Hokage faction would be left too weak to respond effectively. Therefore, no matter how much he resented Hyuga's reckless provocation of border conflict, Third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi still had to grit his teeth and haggle with the insatiable coalition of ninja clans, hoping to squeeze more combat-ready ninjas from their grasp to throw into the northern border defenses. Denzo, Have you confirmed that all traces and evidence were thoroughly destroyed? Koharu Utane's gaze fell upon Shimura Denzo, who sat in the corner of the room. Not certain, Denzo answered grimly, shaking his head. The materials were merely gathered during wartime, and we have no way of knowing whether that brat from the Hyuga clan has any knowledge about it. That, however, was the most critical problem. This mutual suspicion. A concept akin to a dark forest. Left Hidden Leaf Village's F4 constantly hesitant. They didn't know if Hyuga's Shu or the ninja from the Hyuga and Uchiha clans at the Northern Front headquarters knew anything about it either. Nor did they know whether other ninja clans within the village were aware of the incident. Moreover, whether Hidden Cloud's village only held the evidence destroyed on the front lines. Or had more elsewhere. Was also uncertain. If Hyuga's Shu and the village's ninja clans truly knew nothing about it, then even if Hidden Cloud's village revealed everything, Hidden Leaf Village's F4 could simply dismiss it as enemy slander. But should proof already be in the hands of these clans, then things would become extremely problematic. This wasn't the kind of issue that could be dismissed with a simple excuse like inadequate supervision. The village can deploy up to 2,000 ninja troops, and additionally, at least 1,000 must be conscripted from these clans. Hiruzen Sarutobi said slowly. He deliberately avoided addressing the issue of evidence. But Koharu hesitated. After all, in the Ninja Clan Summit meeting, the Hyuga clan leader had proposed removing her entirely from control of Hidden Leaf Village's administrative department, replacing it instead with a standing decision-making committee formed by the Ninja Clan Coalition. In essence, handing governance over to the likes of the Hyuga and Uchiha clans. Her instincts told her, however, that the third Hokage wouldn't possibly compromise so drastically. The administrative department was already the core pillar of the Hokage's authority. Giving it up would shake the very foundations of Hidden Leaf Village's rule. I will issue the war mobilization order against Hidden Cloud's village and deliver a wartime speech. The third Hokage's words once again shocked the three present. It was a total escalation of hostilities. Once a war mobilization order was issued, Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Cloud's village would have no choice but to fight until one side lay utterly defeated. There would be no easy way out after that. Moreover, the longer the war dragged on, the more heroic figures would rise from its chaos. Bringing new complications along with them. However, we haven't received reliable intelligence from MIST. Whether through the Intelligence Division, Anbu, or contacts via Daimyo, we've failed to obtain any commitment from the Land of Water. Hamoru Midokado expressed his concerns regarding his old friend's decision. Besides these internal issues, what worried them most was the external threat. The current ninja world still had Mist Village in the Land of Water, which had shut itself off and remained silent for a long time. This village, notorious for its brutality, had destroyed Uzumaki clan's Whirlpool country. Hidden Leaf Village's ally. And since then had maintained complete silence, even Root could not uncover their current activities. If Mist attacked while we were marching north to war against Hidden Cloud's village, Hidden Leaf Village would find itself once again fighting 4 enemies at once. The coastal defense camp in the east has been reorganized and is now under the Hyuga clan's management. For now, we don't have to worry about that front too much. Denzo suddenly spoke from the corner. Even if Mist launches an attack, that will be the Hyuga clan's problem, and those other dissenting clans' issue. While your words aren't entirely appropriate, in reality, that's exactly how things stand. Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage, showed appreciation for his longtime aide's understanding at this moment. Yet Denzo ignored his old friend's praising look and continued on his own accord. Additionally, even if the village decides to deploy our ninja forces northward, the new regiment must not be handed directly over to that young kid's Hyuga. After all, he's still wet behind the ears. And your suggestion would be? Koharu Utane cast her gaze toward the old monkey who had returned to his composed and easygoing state. White Fang. Tsukimo. Both Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage, and Denzo Shimura called out. One using the legendary title, the other using the name. Then let's discuss again how we can get those ninja clans to send reinforcements. Hamoru Midokado no longer voiced any objections. At this moment, Hidden Leaf Village's F4, who previously showed signs of disunity in secret, displayed unprecedented unity. Tsuhyuga neither doted on Mahiru-chan's cozy world nor solely focused his efforts on training the already fragile instructor corps. After Takahiro Uchiha completed his inspection tour across the northern border battalions and verified their battle achievements one by one, Tsu immediately formed a field inspection group consisting of 6 Uchiha ninja and 3 Hyuga ninja and began inspecting the defensive readiness of each battalion. His reason for personally heading north with such a small entourage was twofold. Firstly, due to confidence in his own strength, and secondly because he had received a letter forwarded by Kaorio Jonin from Sakamo Hatake. In the secret letter, Sakamo Hatake first sent his greetings briefly, then straightforwardly mentioned something important. That the Hokage had consulted him about willingness to take up the role of Supreme Northern Commander, leading Hidden Leaf Village's ninja forces in the full-scale war against Hidden Cloud's village.